Did you ever count?
Count what?
How many children there were on Gallifrey that day?
I've absolutely no idea.
How old are you now?
I don't know. I lose track. 1,200 and something, I think, unless I'm lying. I can't remember if I'm lying about my age. That's how old I am.
400 years older than me, and in all that time you never even wondered how many there were. You never once counted.
Tell me, what would be the point?
2.47 billion.
You did count.
You forgot. 400 years, is that all it takes?
I moved on.
Where? Where can you be now that you can forget something like that?
Spoilers.
No. No. For once, I would like to know where I'm going.
No, you really wouldn't.
I don't know who you are. Either of you. I haven't got the faintest idea.
They're you. They're what you become if you destroy Gallifrey. The man who regrets. And the man who forgets. The moment is coming. The moment is me. You have to decide.
Hello and welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast with me, Matthew, and as always...
Hello, I'm Scott. That was a very delayed hello there.
I mean, I would edit it out, but now that you've mentioned it, I'll just leave the long gap of silence.
Yeah. I watched Matthew. His mouth open for like 15 seconds. I was like, is he going to say it? Did he freeze?
You gotta get in character, you know? I have to get my presenter persona awake. But this week we are covering the 50th anniversary, the Day of the Doctor special, and I'm ready for this to be a long episode, honestly.
Yeah, I am too.
This episode first aired on November 23rd, 2013, which was a Saturday, and at the time of recording, which is, I think, like, 2 weeks out from release at the moment?
Yeah.
It was 7 years, 11 months, and 15 days ago, so we're steamrolling to that 8th anniversary, which is why we're covering the episode this week, is it's the 8th anniversary of the 50th anniversary, which is just unbelievable that it was that long ago.
It really is. Soon it'll be 10 years, and it'll be like, where did time go? And we're almost, like, the 60th anniversary is going to shoot next year, or the year afterwards, which is insane.
Yeah,
think
yeah. 2023, the 60th anniversary. Like, and that means it was 10 years since, like, Matt Smith left as the Doctor, and we got a tease of Capaldi. It's horrifying.
Where the fuck is the time going? Jesus.
But it wasn't the only major cultural event to take place on this day, Scott. Would you believe it that the BBC had the audacity, I want to say, to release the 50th anniversary, on the 50th anniversary, but they thought in the 60s, they were like, yeah, this is the day Doctor Who comes out because... well, in 50 years' time, One Direction are going to premiere live all around the world for over 7 hours to celebrate the release of One Direction's new album, Midnight Memories. And that happened on the same time, the same day as the Day of the Doctor. I mean, what were the BBC thinking? Going head-to-head with something like that?
I remember this because there was an after show on BBC Three straight afterwards, and we managed to get One Direction... I presume they were on break or something, and they had an interview on this Doctor Who after show. And at one point, Matt Smith is sitting on the couch, and he does this gesture to the camera when they're on screen. And if you obviously can't see it because we're not recording, but he did the 2-finger gesture. It was also a link that didn't work correctly. There was a technical fail, and yeah, it was a complete disaster.
I feel like it's more like a peace sign, but he's just doing it the wrong way around.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem malicious.
That whole after show was a complete disaster. I feel like we didn't have things prepared at all. It was garbage. But yeah.
I didn't watch the after show at all. I mean, I didn't really watch live TV. I watched Doctor Who when it's live, but that's really it.
Yeah, I went to the cinema and saw this, so I didn't see the after show either. So,
wow, imagine going to the cinema to watch Doctor Who. What a loser!
But yeah, One Direction did their 7-hour-long concert. That's pretty massive.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. I presume they did different things rather than doing just songs, because I don't think they have that much songs.
They only sang the one song. They just repeated the same song over. It wasn't even their song. They were just singing Crazy Frog the whole 7 hours.
And they sang it also in slow motion, so the whole 7 hours played like 10 times speed. Just
yeah, it was a really surreal experience, and it's the reason why they've never done another one since. But could you guess, and I 100% guarantee that you could, whomst was the US Presidente on this day?
Well, even if you didn't tell me earlier in messaging, but I would know this as Barack Obama, yes.
Yep, it is Barack, the last decent president of the United States, Obama. He was the 44th president of the United States and was the first African-American to hold the post, as we're all very aware. The only thing in the research that I found that I didn't actually know about Obama, in 2009, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. He won the Nobel Peace Prize for his extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between peoples, which I thought was a pretty nifty little thing.
Cool.
He also, in the photos of him holding the Nobel Prize, looks so young.
Yeah. That man aged about 20 years in office.
It's the famous thing about being a president. As a president, like every single president's hair goes white, like they age faster.
The good thing about Donald Trump was he always already had white hair, so he was fine.
And Joe Biden's barely got any. Which this is technically related because it's about president, but we just had the COP26 thing here, in Glasgow, and Biden was here.
Yes.
And there was a report when he met the Duchess of Cambridge, Camilla. Apparently, it's written as broke wind, and it was extraordinarily loud and went on for a prolonged period of time. And apparently, Camilla hasn't stopped talking about it.
That's amazing. It reminds me of Andre the Giant on the set of The Princess Bride. We had to stop. Yeah. We had to stop recording at one point, just wondering what that noise was, and then all of a sudden, Andre was like, "Oh, it's just me farting. It's okay."
Could you guess who the United Kingdom Prime Minister was on this day?
David Cameron.
Correctamundo. Yes. It was David Cameron. And interesting fact, and it really was a sign of the times. 2013, I think we're on the precipice of entering the Dark Ages, but we're not quite there. But both David Cameron and Barack Obama were the respective leaders of their countries when they both passed the equal marriage law. So, both of them are responsible for legalizing, or at least, they're not responsible, but they were the heads of the table when gay marriage was legalized in both the States and the UK. David Cameron also led the first coalition government with the Liberal Democrats since World War II, and that had to happen because nobody won the election in 2010.
Oh boy. UK politics and US politics are always such a shit show.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. But, you know, I think our system of having multiple parties is better than having two parties. But, hey-o, they led a coalition that wasn't super successful. David Cameron was also present for the Scottish referendum panic, as the BBC described it, which was he decided to give Scotland a referendum, and up until the very day of the vote, it looked like we were about to go independent, and then he bombed it up the border and gave a bunch of speeches, and we didn't get independence for, I don't know, a couple years. Give it time, we'll get it again.
Yeah, hopefully this ends up like that Doctor Who episode where Scotland is in its own ship.
Yeah, that's what we need. And then I wrote, did Brexit then quit?
Yeah. That's a fair summary. Yikes.
It's weird thinking he was the prime minister that did the Brexit referendum, because it honestly feels like he was prime minister so long ago, because we had Theresa May, then Boris. Like, we've run through so many prime ministers since he was in charge.
Yeah. Brexit itself took a while to get through, didn't it?
2016 was the referendum.
Yeah, God.
But could you guess the top film in the UK on this day?
Okay, so I actually know this because Doctor Who, was in cinemas on this day. So, according to Wikipedia at least, number 1 was The Hunger Games Catching Fire, number 2 was Gravity, and number 3 was Doctor Who Day of the Doctor. Yep,
that is correct indeed. Could you guess it in the US? It's also The Hunger Games Catching Fire.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen The Hunger Games?
I saw about 1 hour of the first one, and I was like, this is boring. Turned it off, never watched it again.
Yeah, I think I've maybe seen the first film. Not for me. No, I'm not the biggest fan of the YA adventure stories.
Yeah, this was around at the same time as like all those other dystopian YA novels.
Every other YA dystopia that got turned into a film.
Like The Maze Runner, Divergent, they all kind of blend together, just one glob.
Yeah, they're basically the same. Young teenage girl saves dystopia future. But could you guess the top song in this here United States? That's not where we are.
Doctor in Distress, because of Doctor Who.
That was number 2. The number 1 song was Dope by Lady Gaga, which isn't a song I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I don't recognize that either. I like Lady Gaga. I can probably name like 10 of her songs, but
all the songs from Lady Gaga I know are from like the noughties.
Yeah, same.
I would be honestly amazed if you know the UK song, because I don't even know the artist that is the number 1 here with the UK song on this day. It is Animals by Martin Garrix.
Okay.
I have no idea.
I have never heard of that person. But the song title is vague enough to be like, maybe I've heard of that song?
Yeah.
What's the song? What's the guy called?
Martin Garrix, Animals.
Okay, I think I've heard of this. It's kind of like EDM music, which isn't my thing at all.
This is around peak Skrillex years, isn't it? So
yeah,
it makes sense.
Yes.
That this was the style at the time.
And it's a song I probably recognize from like dozens of commercials where we just need a simple background song to play. It doesn't cost much money.
It sounds like every EDM song I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's not.
Oh,
great.
I recognize that middle bit. I have heard this song, but yeah, it's I'm not really into the whole dubstepness.
Remember the Amazing Spider-Man 2? How its entire soundtrack was dubstep.
I barely remember the Amazing Spider-Man 2, other than I got really annoyed at the Green Goblin skin disease thing.
Yes.
Mainly because if I remember correctly, his father is dying from it.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've had this for years. It's been slowly eating away at me. And you have it as well, son. And then suddenly his son, who's never had any of these symptoms before, rapidly loses his health. It took his father years.
Yeah, that's how it works, though. Once you find out somebody has a disease that passes down from generation to generation, you suddenly get that disease as well.
Yeah, instantly. And your symptoms happen twice as fast.
What a dumb movie. Well,
Yeah.
apparently they were going to make Amazing Spider-Man 3, but they cancelled that movie because Andrew Garfield didn't show up to an event where we were going to announce it because he was ill. So they cancelled that entire movie, which is insane.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably for the better because they're coming back for the new Spider-Man film, probably.
I'm not even sure at this point, but if they aren't, people are going to be very disappointed.
Yeah, but I mean, really, they'd only have themselves to blame. Marvel haven't said anything about it.
Even if they were like, no, they are not in this film, people would be like, they're just lying to us. We're definitely in this movie.
Watch this conversation be incredibly out of date because by the time it comes out, the trailer's out that shows the Spider-Man in the film.
Yeah.
Like, so
and
yeah,
Andrew Garfield was in Doctor Who as well. That's something.
he was. Tobey Maguire's not been in Doctor Who yet, though.
Neither has Tom Holland.
Yeah, and he's
Disgraceful.
British.
Yeah.
Disgusting. But that's all I have that happened on this day. There was a lot of war stuff. The Iraqi war had just ended and the US were withdrawing. The Islamist insurgency in Nigeria was kicking up. There was a Syrian civil war. It was a messy time in history.
When is it not?
Very true. Thursdays.
Is that
Everyone agreed. Everyone agreed. But shall we move into the trivia section of the Day of the Doctor, Scott?
Yes, it's time to move on to the trivia section of the third biggest movie of the weekend of the 23rd of November, 2013.
Specifically in the UK. I don't think it did very well in the States.
Okay, so yes, of course, this was obviously the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who. It was the biggest anniversary special in 30 years because obviously in 1973 we had the 3 Doctors, but because William Hartnell didn't show up, it's technically the 2 Doctors. In 1983 we had the 5 Doctors, but because William Hartnell is dead and Tom Baker didn't show up, it's technically the 3 Doctors. The titles of these are loose at best. In 1993 we have Dimensions in Time, which was the awful EastEnders crossover special, which I can't wait to cover someday, but that's another day. And in 2003 we had some animations, I guess. I never really watched those, but obviously this year we had Day of the Doctor, and it is certainly the biggest celebration because there is plenty of documentaries and shorts and specials to go alongside it. Do you remember anything from this time?
I remember being very excited. I remember the short that they did with movie doctor whose name's left my head, Paul McGann.
Yes.
I remember thinking that was really, really cool. I don't remember a lot of details. I remember watching, I think it's The Name of the Doctor, the series finale with Matt Smith. I was watching that at my friend's house with him. And then when they're like, this is the name of the Doctor, that's the title of the episode, you expect that Moffat's gonna, call him Dave or something. And then we get the reveal of John Hurt, and it comes up on screen introducing John Hurt as the War Doctor, I think it was. And I just remember my friend's brother coming into the living room and going, so the Doctor's name's John Hurt.
Yeah, that cliffhanger was fucking wild, man. I laughed out of my chair just being like, what the fuck?
I remember being really confused by it because I had no idea who John Hurt was at all. I was 13 years old and okay, what?
Yeah, I had a vague remembrance of who he was as well. I saw Alien by that time, so I vaguely knew him. He pointed him out, but he had aged considerably since Alien, so he wasn't immediately recognizable.
Yeah, and I'd seen Harry Potter as well, but he's totally looks completely different than he does in Harry Potter. And I'd seen Merlin, but he was considerably less scaly. Not by much, but he was less scaly in Merlin than he was in Doctor Who.
But yeah, just in like November 2013, we had a lot of documentaries. We had obviously the Night of the Doctor, which brought back Paul McGann as the Eighth Doctor, which was a huge surprise, and they released that without any warning because they thought it was going to leak at some point. So you're like, let's just get this out here, and you have a brilliant opening where Paul McGann is like, I'm the Doctor, but not the one you expect, which was perfect.
Yeah. I really want him to come back for the 60th anniversary. I honestly, with all my heart, want him to have a full adventure with Matt Smith and David Tennant.
Yeah, because he's still the Doctor. He's still doing a great job over there, and he hasn't aged a day. He looks
awesome still.
And the man is 60. He's incredible.
Yeah. And he's he is the prototype for the modern Doctor, as we found out in the Doctor Who movie. He is so good. I would love to see him on screen again.
The Doctor Who movie, potentially our second longest podcast after this one.
We'll see. I would be surprised if we beat 4 hours and 45 minutes. Maybe tie it. I can see us tying it.
But also, just a few nights before we got the Day of the Doctor, we had An Adventure in Space and Time, which was the biopic about William Hartnell, which was very, very good. Have you seen that?
I don't think I have. seen that.
It is definitely worth watching. It's probably the greatest biopic you could have ever made out of Doctor Who. It's got everything just you need to know about the series. It's perfect. And David Bradley, of course, played the first Doctor again in Twice Upon a Time.
He is a man that vaguely looks like William Hartnell.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, aside from looking like William Hartnell, he doesn't really act like William Hartnell, but I'm fine with it. I have a problem with him more as the first Doctor in Twice Upon a Time because I do not connect him as being the first Doctor.
I enjoyed it, but whatever.
We'll get to that, where I just complain about how badly the first Doctor is written. Can't wait to get to that argument. And also around this time, we also had the Five-ish Doctors reboot, which was a comedy skit.
I did see this. This. I specifically remember. I think it's from this anyway. One joke where one of the Doctors is on the console bit, and he's like, "Oh, it's sturdy." You can lean on it. You used to wobble when we were there.
There's also a great part of that where Colin Baker forces his entire family to watch the special features of one of his stories, and they're just trying to desperately scramble to the door, but he locks it. It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, it's half an hour long. It's a Five-ish Doctors reboot. It's got Sylvester McCoy, Colin Baker, and Peter Davison, and they're just trying to get into the Day of the Doctor set, and it's amazing. Also, you get cameo appearances by Paul McGann and David Tennant, and it's just spectacular. So, of course, the idea of a multi-Doctor story, Moffat was planning this special as early as late 2011, soon after Series 6 finished airing. Obviously, we had 5 episodes in 2012, 8 episodes in 2013, plus the 2 specials, which was... 2012 was a quiet period for Doctor Who, but 2013 was certainly big for Doctor Who.
It's very reminiscent of this past 2 years and next year, or this year and next year, moving into the 60th anniversary, isn't it? Where we've got half a series, then a bunch of specials, and then the 60th anniversary, and then the new season kicks off properly. We're back in that, we're kind of stalling a bit.
Yeah, so 2021 has 6 episodes. Next year we have 3 episodes. And 2023, maybe just 1, but I'm secretly hoping there's a mini series just before that of 6 episodes, but we'll see how that gets handled, because we'll have a 1 year gap between episodes, which is kind of sad in a way, but we'll see what happens with that. So he wrote the script for this one in late 2012, and obviously the last episode ended with John Hurt being revealed as the War Doctor, as we discussed. And it took Moffat quite a while to figure out what to do with the cliffhanger to lead into the 50th anniversary. He says, the first version was David, Matt, and Christopher Eccleston together, with whatever involvement we could contrive for the other Doctors. But, being brutal, it had to be the Doctors that still looked like their Doctors. I know I'm a bastard, but hey, I think Peter, Colin, and Sylvester were better displayed in the 5-ish Doctors than they could ever be elsewhere. But
I get his reasoning.
Yeah. It would have been distracting to see like a 70-year-old Sylvester McCoy running around the place.
It would really make you question the canon of Doctor Who even more. Like, there's a certain point where you age out of your Doctor, where you're like, okay, you can no longer really portray that Doctor on screen anymore. But you can still, here's Big Finish, don't worry, you're never getting to leave.
In The Two Doctors, which is a story in 1986, we have Colin Baker and Patrick Troughton together. And Patrick Troughton still looked rather much the same as he did in 1969, but he had silver hair instead of black hair, which kind of was distracting. Even though he looked exactly like the same, his hair was distracting enough to be like, he's aged. Why don't he just dye the hair? And you can't hide aged Doctors in quite the same way, can you?
I mean, now if the BBC had Disney's money, they would bring everyone back and just de-age them with CGI.
Yeah.
Like, they would, if Disney owned Doctor Who, you can bet we're getting on the 60th anniversary every single Doctor. All of them are back, and 95% of them are made out of CGI.
They would certainly bring back Peter Cushing's Doctor.
Well, they've already got the CGI model for him.
Exactly. But yes, I would hate to see a CGI Doctor Who filled episodes. That would be my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Stephen Moffat goes on to say, but I knew that Chris was almost certainly going to say no. I met him a couple of times and he was absolutely lovely. He met with me because he didn't want to say no through his agent or a phone call or email. He wanted to do it personally, and I 3/4 talked him into it. I went for another meeting with him, and he decided no. His reasons are his business, and he's a very private man, but it's reasonable to say he really cares about Doctor Who. He's well versed in what's happened since he left, and happily chatted away about Amy Pond by name. So yeah, I like hearing stories about Christopher Eccleston still being respectful to the show.
Yeah, like, I still like that he is at least semi-aware of the characters in it. And also, Moffat almost convincing him to come back. That just made me, fills me with excitement. And then I'm like, but Russell T Davies is in charge. And we just recently discovered the reason why Eccleston doesn't want to come back to Doctor Who. And it was a messy departure involving Russell T Davies. So...
yeah, I 100% respect him for not wanting to come back. I don't think he owes us anything, and I'm happy that he's still the Doctor in Audio Adventures.
I'm glad we've still got some version of his Doctor that we can enjoy. It's not like he's just like a splotch in New Who history where nobody talks about him, and you don't really count his series because he's never come back again. He does have the spin-offs now.
Yeah, but yeah, 100% respect. Christopher Eccleston for being a decent person. I think he sounds like I think if I was him, I'd be like, I wouldn't say no to him in a meeting. I would just say, I would tell my agent to say no instead. But just sitting down with him in the restaurant, saying it to him personally, which is really good of him. He's a good man, I think.
Yeah.
So Stephen Moffat goes on to say, we had to work out what else to do. At that point, neither David or Matt were under contract either. I just had Jenna. And I did come up with a plotline that was just Jenna. It was a nightmare. We're weeks away from filming. A production team is assembled, people are doing storyboards, and I don't even know if anyone who has ever played the Doctor is going to be in it. Which sounds like a complete nightmare. Just an idea of just Clara only being the only character in it.
This is the 50th anniversary. Here's everybody's favorite companion, Clara, for the whole hour by yourself.
But this sounds like just a complete disaster almost. Like,
I want to see it. I want to see that cut. Give us the Clara cut of the 50th anniversary.
But yeah, just we're weeks away from filming them. They just only have Clara at this point. Like, I can't even imagine what the plot would be. Like, wild. But obviously, Stephen really wanted the special to recount an important day in the Doctor's life, rather than being a story about the Doctor solving other people's problems, as most Doctor Who episodes are. It would focus on the Doctor himself, which is a great way to go around it. He had trouble imagining the Eighth Doctor in the Time War, and 9 was recently regenerated in Rose, so he didn't think any of them could actually be involved in like the War Doctor position, which I think is fair enough. I don't imagine the Eighth Doctor ever doing any of the events in this episode.
Yeah, the Eighth Doctor is much more, as we said, the modern prototype. Like, he's fun and lighthearted and a bit silly and can read everybody's minds and is very sexy and likes to canoodle around.
Now I'm just imagining John Hurt just kissing everyone.
And I think they handled it really well with the Night of the Doctor. That's what it's called, isn't it? Where it's the Eighth Doctor regenerating.
Yeah.
Where it's like when he goes to those ladies and he's like, I'm not the man for this, you know. I need to change into someone that can handle this because I know I can't. I think that's a perfectly good canon explanation. And a really cool way to give his Doctor an actual ending as well. Like, it finishes off his storyline. It's no longer just this hanging loose thread.
It also helps his audio adventures to be canon, because he lists every companion he had at that point, which is obviously just makes everything canon again. I still need to get around to the Eighth Doctor audio dramas.
I'd love to go through. I'd love to go through his audio dramas.
There's so much at this point.
Maybe once the Eccleston series finishes, we could cover some of the Eighth Doctor series.
Yeah, that would be fun. But Stephen Moffat said to one of the producers, "What if there was an incarnation of the Doctor none of us knew about, and coincidentally he was played by the most famous actor in the world, specifically someone who might have been cast as the Doctor during the long hiatus? For instance, John Hurt." Now, John Hurt was actually cast 2 weeks before filming. Like, this was very last minute stuff, as we just discussed. And yeah, he almost immediately said yes. And 2 weeks later, he was just on the set of Doctor Who. And he had never seen an episode before, but he was actually proud of being in the role, which is really nice to hear. And he was very honoured to be in part of his long legacy. But
yeah, it's the thing, is like, even if you haven't seen Doctor Who, you know what Doctor Who is. Like, you're aware of the cultural impact of Doctor Who. Also, when Moffat was like, imagine if there's a Doctor that we've never heard of. I like to imagine Chris Chibnall was in the back of the room going, oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah, if you want to do a secret incarnation of the Doctor, to do it during the time we never saw on screen is the perfect way to do it.
The Time War is the perfect place for it. It made so much sense when it was revealed. Like, I was 100% on board with the canon. And, like, it also, like, we're not covering the Name of the Doctor episode, but from what I remember, that episode specifically really, really hurts the Timeless Child plot, because that's where Clara jumps into his timeline. And is like, yeah, these are definitively your entire existence. Wait, what's this one you've forgotten about? Oh, the War Doctor. What about the 15 other Doctors beforehand, Clara? What about them?
Yeah. It makes perfect sense for the canon just be like, oh yeah, we never explored this area of the Doctor's life. We never saw the Eighth Doctor regenerate into Christopher Eccleston. It's perfect. And it's believable, and it's the idea of a man forgetting part of himself because of his PTSD during the war is like really realistic, and it's perfect for the show to just be like, oh, here's a secret incarnation forgotten due to PTSD, instead of, oh, the Doctor's basically immortal and she's now Jesus, and we're never really going to touch on that, are we?
We'll see. I still hold water to my theory that she's from the planet Time.
Oh god. Yeah, so yeah, the War Doctor is certainly better than the Timeless Child at this point, at least. I hope there's some redemption for the Timeless Child. So obviously in this episode we got the return of Billie Piper and David Tennant, which was massive, and Doctor Who magazine accidentally revealed the return 5 days early by releasing their magazine early to certain subscribers. So the news leaked early, and Moffat didn't want Rose to be back because he thought her story was over, but she had to be there to represent the rebirth of Doctor Who, which makes perfect sense. You don't want to add anything onto the arc of somebody else's work, like Russell T Davies. Just respect what that man did to the character, and it's fine.
Yeah, I was when the news of Billie Piper coming back for the 50th anniversary came out. I remember being hesitant and being like, "Oh no, I don't want Rose to come back." I really like how Rose has a finished story, and I really like what they did with her in the 50th anniversary, where she's the bomb. If I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I think she's the moment.
Yeah. I really, really enjoyed what Moffat did with it. I think the 50th anniversary, we're recording this before I've had a chance to watch it, but from my memories of it, I love the 50th anniversary. So I think Moffat did such a good job with it.
Yeah, just seeing Matt Smith and David Tennant and John Hurt together was great. I haven't seen it in a long time. We're going to obviously do it before we do our next segment when we watch and review the episode. Otherwise, this will be a disaster.
No, we'll just kind of hazily remember the events that happened and go, yeah, that was good, wasn't it?
But yeah, obviously Billie Piper being there is great, and I'm very happy with what role she had in the episode. And also this was released into cinemas in 3D, which was the last thing the BBC ever did in 3D, because this was right when the 3D boom both started and kind of crashed at the same time. The boom didn't last very long at all.
Yeah, the boom must have started, 2009-10 with Avatar?
Yes.
Then immediately explode in a ball of fire. Yes. Because 3D sucks.
Yeah. There was a time where they kept on producing 3D TVs, and this was the next big thing, and then the year after, no one
and then
cares about this.
then they were like curved TVs, and nobody cared. And then they went, okay, bigger TVs with a better picture, and people went, yay!
But yeah, this was obviously a big inspiration with Avatar, and also Dread, the movie Dread, which was I never saw that movie in cinemas.
Now I wish I saw that film in 3D, because that film is awesome. Such an awesome film.
And it's apparently the best use of 3D ever, I was way too young to see it anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, I was too young to watch it in cinemas as well, but I definitely watched it when it came onto home theater, and I adore that film. It holds up pretty well as well.
But yeah, with 3D and this episode of Doctor Who was actually pretty good as well. The 3D was proper 3D. Every special effect was rendered twice. It's slightly different angles. There's a lot of effort to put into it.
I think the last thing I saw in 3D in cinema was Captain America: The First Avenger.
Oh God, was that one of the post-conversion 3D things?
Probably, because I remember the 3D in it being terrible until the final credits, and then the final credits were spectacular in 3D.
Guaranteed it was not shot in 3D and just done in post-editing, which is a lot of the case, sadly. Every movie had to be in 3D, even though it didn't warrant it, which was a big problem. They've re-released a lot of movies in 3D as well. I think the last movie I saw in 3D was Terminator 2, which wasn't too bad, but there was no need to make it in 3D.
Why would you watch that in 3D?
I was curious, okay? But yeah, obviously this was a massive airing right across the world. 94 countries aired this at the same time, and it broke a World Guinness record. Or a Guinness World Record. That's the order of the words.
Yeah.
834 cinemas around the world aired this. It made $1.7 million box office in the UK and $10.2 million across the world, which was pretty damn good for an episode of a TV show.
It's probably the most money the BBC's ever made from Doctor Who. So,
But yeah, you missed out seeing this in the cinema, didn't you?
I did. I never got a chance to see this in cinemas. I watched it within the comfort of my own home. I would have loved to see it in cinema, but hey-oh, that's the 60th anniversary coming up.
You poor wee boy. Well, I saw this in the cinemas and I was like, it was very good. It was a very fun experience, just hearing the big gasps and all the awes in the audience. And I'll recount every cinema experience I remember when we get to the episode. There's not much I remember, but there's some great little moments. Like just
Awesome.
Yeah, that's all we have for our facts and things today.
Oh, nice.
Nice and short.
Well, with that, let's buckle up. I hope you're somewhere where you can settle down and prepare yourself for the journey through the day of the Doctor, and it's probably going to take us about a day to get through it. So, without further ado, let's dive into the episode, shall we?
Yep.
These events should be time-locked. We shouldn't even be here.
So something led us through.
You clever boys.
Go back. Go back to your lives. Go and be the Doctor that I could never be. Make it worthwhile.
All those years burying you in my memory.
Pretending you didn't exist. Keeping you a secret even from myself.
Pretending you weren't the Doctor when you were the Doctor more than anybody else.
You were the Doctor on the day it wasn't possible to get it right.
But this time,
You don't have to do it alone.
Thank you.
what we do today is not out of fear or hatred. It is done because there is no other way.
And it is done in the name of the many lives we are failing to save. What? What is it? What?
Nothing.
No. Something, tell me.
You told me you wiped out your own people. I never pictured you doing it, that's all.
And let us begin a smooth transition into watching the episode.
Just one thing I forgot to mention in the introduction. Bob Baker recently died, and one of his many contributions to Doctor Who, aside from creating characters like K9 and Omega, was to write the Three Doctors, which, you know, is the first multi-Doctor story ever created. So I think a lot of that DNA is in Day of the Doctor. Like, the best parts of Day of the Doctor is the Doctor interacting with himself, and a lot of that goes down to the formula that basically Bob Baker created. And yeah, just had to mention him.
Yeah. Anyway, the episode opens up like it's 1963 with the classic Doctor Who intro, and I love it. What did you think of it?
I love it, but I have two problems with it. One, it's too short. It doesn't get into like the chorus part. And secondly, like, it has a BBC logo underneath it, which is really distracting because it never had the BBC logo in the 1963 version. Minor nitpicks, but you know.
Yeah, it is a really, really short intro. But, Scott, how are we going to know it's from the BBC if they don't tell us it's from the BBC? Like, if we don't have two BBC logos, one in the top left and one in the center, how do we know who made it?
That's a good point, actually.
You got to think about these things before you say them out loud.
But yeah, it's really good to open up with the old intro. It really makes you think, oh, I remember when the show first started, and it's come a long way since then. It's a good reflection on how far the show's come.
Yeah, I remember 1963.
So do I. It was a good year.
But we open up to a policeman officer walking, and it took me a moment to realize it was a slow motion shot.
Right.
I thought he was the slowest walking man in the world.
But of course, this is a reference to the policeman who first opens up the show in An Unearthly Child, because that opens up in the policeman, and this policeman is called Reg, named after Reg Cranfield, the guy who played with policeman in the opening shot of the first ever episode. So that's a good little tribute to him.
Yeah. And he walks past Coal Hill Secondary School, such a school that you may know from also An Unearthly Child, where Susan went to.
Yeah.
And the two teachers.
And he also walks past the sign for the scrapyard, which was where the Doctor lived in An Unearthly Child. It's a hard title to say, An Unearthly Child.
Yeah.
And also that scrapyard was in the brilliant video game Edge of Reality in the opening level.
It's very good game. I've played it once and haven't opened it again.
And also underneath the sign of the Coal Hill School is I Chesterton, which is Ian, and W Coburn, which is Anthony Coburn, who wrote An Unearthly Child, which is there's a lot of Easter eggs just in the first 5 minutes.
And Anthony doesn't start with a W. So. But yeah, this is back when we are with Clara, when she decided she wanted to be a teacher for like a season, and it was she a teacher next season as well? Yeah. I think so, because that's with Danny Pink, and it's really bad.
Yeah, like the first opening of Deep Breath has her have a PTSD flashback to when a child makes fun of her in school, and she's like, "Oh, I need."
Yeah. The when they brought back Coal Hill, it was pretty exciting. Like a classic Stephen Moffat callback to Doctor Who, where you're like, "Ooh, yay! Feed me more, please." And then they did nothing with it, and the stuff they did with it was like Class.
Yes.
Or all the really bad Clara episodes.
Yeah.
Although I think the episode where the Doctor's the caretaker of the school was pretty good. I'd have to rewatch it, but I remember it being okay.
Yeah, Class made the school very sexy for some reason. It turned into a secondary school, and now it's very sexy. People are just knocking
It is a
everywhere.
Secondary school. The sign says right there,
okay.
Coal Hill Secondary
But originally
School.
it wasn't a secondary school. I think it was a primary school in the first place.
But if it was a primary school, Susan would be like 12 years old.
Okay then.
A man runs into the school and like slides across the floor, and he like, whoo, stretches out his arms as he does it. It was a very strange bit of staging for him. But he's like, "Are you okay, Clara? Their doctor called." And she was like, "Oh, did he tell me where to go?" And he was like, "Yeah, you gotta go out to this place." And this is a character we'll never see or hear from again.
Yeah. he kind of has a Matt Smith hairstyle in a way.
Yeah. To me, he feels like the prototype Danny Pink, where he's the like proto going to be love interest sort of.
Yeah.
While Clara's the human touch to Clara's life, but he never gets brought back.
Yeah, it's hard to say what he was going to be because there's not much chemistry between him and Jenna Coleman, so God knows what they were planning there.
But Clara drives her anti-gravity bike out of the school. That's the anti-grav bike that Matt Smith drives up a building earlier in the series.
Yeah, Bells of St. John, yeah. And she drives past a clock saying 5:15, which is the time the first episode ever aired in 1963. Another Easter egg. Also, I think it would be a nice touch if the license plate said "Who won," like Bessie in the third Doctor era.
We see the bike as Clara rides it down the street towards the TARDIS, and she honks her horn for the doors to open. The doors don't open. She goes, "Oh crap! Honk, 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 honk." Then the doors open again, and we get the cool shot. I think probably one of the coolest TARDIS bigger on the inside reveals. It's very reminiscent of the Doctor Who movie.
Yes.
When the guy in the bike drives into the TARDIS, turns around, and comes back out. The Doctor and Clara joke with one another, being like, "Let's go to the moon. Ha ha ha, you're a bad teacher, and I can't learn anything." And then the TARDIS gets picked up by a big crane. And I remember when I was watching this, I was having flashbacks to 2013 or maybe 2012 when they were shooting it.
Yes.
Or of them shooting this in London and all the set photos and people looking at it being like, oh, look, the TARDIS. And we'll get to it in a few moments, but it is also my least favorite part of this entire episode.
Oh, really?
Because there's just a thing in it that's always nagged me.
Okay.
And I'm like, why? But we'll get there.
The music kind of turns into Mission Impossible for a tiny bit here, and also it turns into the opening montage song from Rose, in a way. Some notes, but that's about it.
The soundtrack's very good the whole time.
Yeah.
In this, I really enjoy. We'll talk about it, but I really enjoy when David Tennant first shows up, and then it goes into his era style music, and then when it's with Matt Smith,
Yes.
it's the grand epic style. The music choice was top notch. We cut to Unit as we see Osgood. Have we met Osgood before? This episode, I don't remember if she was a 50th anniversary character. Or
yeah,
not.
she this is her first episode, and Osgood is originally meant to be a scientist, with Moffat imagining her being related to Osgood from The Demons, our favorite episode with Bok.
Yeah, and I think I like Osgood, but I'm not 100% on that I do like Osgood. She's very much Moffat's way of writing in a fan of the show, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very meta. And
yeah, she's wearing the Doctor's scarf. She loves the Doctor
Yeah.
and knows everything about him, and yeah.
And of course, she runs in on Kate Stewart, which is Brigadier's daughter. She keeps on saying "mom," and when the Americans watched this, they were like, "Oh, she must be saying mum." They thought, because Americans don't understand accents. And also, Kate's sitting there like, "Oh, the Ravens may need new batteries. We must phone Malcolm." And Malcolm is, of course, the Lee Evans character from the Planet of the Dead.
Yeah.
He gets 2 mentions in this episode, I think.
Easter special, best special there was. Yeah, Kate gets handed a phone from Osgood, being like, "It's the Doctor," and she picks up the phone. She's like, "Hello, Doctor. We saw the TARDIS sitting there, so we decided we would take it. For some reason, you could be off saving the world or doing something, but we thought we'd steal your ride home."
Yeah, it's never really explained, but it does make for a really cinematic opening. This was great.
Yeah.
This is very exciting to see in the cinemas.
Yeah, it was fun. But then she's like, "Where are you, Doctor?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm in the helicopter," as he lifts up the phone to the helicopter flying above them.
Also, he has a phone inside of a TARDIS. He doesn't need to do the outside phone.
But I really like it. It was like, I think it was in David Tennant's one, or maybe early Matt Smith as well, where they constantly say that that's not a working phone.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a big plot point in The Empty Child where the phone starts ringing.
Yeah, they're like, that's not a working phone, and then Matt Smith's Doctor uses it all the time. Then Matt Smith falls out of the TARDIS and Clara grabs his legs, and we're getting close to the point that annoys me. Oh boy.
I can't wait. And the music gets very loud when the credits appear, and it's banging. It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, the Doctors, they're flying over London. The special effects for it look all right. They've not held up super great, but this is about as blockbuster as Doctor Who gets, which we'll really get into later on when like all the 3 Doctors are on Gallifrey. Like it's cinematic Doctor Who, and it's great. But as they're flying over London, Clara drops the Doctor, and he falls out the TARDIS. And then in the next shot, we see him hanging on to something underneath the TARDIS. And so he managed, in the space of about half a second, to completely backflip, turn his body around 180 degrees, and grab onto handles that he has underneath the TARDIS.
Well, the alternative is Matt Smith dies, because Matt Smith wanted to go as high as possible.
This was the thing that I've never understood what he's holding on to or how he grabbed a hold of it. It's constantly annoyed me, where I'm like, what has he done to survive this scenario that Moffat has written him into? But yeah, the opening credits where it goes Matt Smith and David Tennant, it makes you giddy with excitement, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was very excited watching this in the cinema. It was awesome.
And a really good use of Matt Smith's theme song, don't you think?
Sure. I think it's better used later on in the episode.
Every time it comes up, it gets me excited. I'm like, yeah, here we go. It's the perfect build-up song.
In this episode, yes, because it's a big bombastic celebration episode. It definitely warrants it being used several times.
In every episode. In every episode, it's fantastic. Matt Smith drops off the TARDIS as they land in, where is it, Trafalgar Square?
Yeah.
And he salutes the unit soldiers. I goes, wait, why am I saluting? Which is it sums up his Doctor really well, you know? Where other Doctors, like David Tennant's Doctor doesn't salute. His one salutes, but just because he's not paying attention.
It vaguely reminds me of Avengers Infinity War, where we're like, we don't do that here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we got a cheeky reference to Darren Brown, the magician guy.
He used to have specials all the time.
Yeah, whatever happened? The last one I saw was the one where he convinces a guy to jump off a cliff or whatever, or cover a murder. I can't remember. But yeah,
the last one I saw was when he convinced a racist that being racist was bad. That was the last one I saw.
We watched a lot. We watched a lot of him in Psychology.
No, I watched him for fun. The one that I remember the most is he convinces, quote unquote convinced, because you gotta take him with a grain of salt with how real his stunts are, but where he convinces someone that it's the zombie apocalypse. That's one that I've got in my head. It was, I think, the first one I saw of him. It's just ingrained in my brain.
Another good one is the one where he convinces people to rob a bank. That's a good one.
The Doctor gets handed a letter from Queen Elizabeth I, and for some reason Clara seems confused by this. She's like, Elizabeth the First, the Queen Elizabeth the First. You time travel with the Doctor. You've been through all of his timelines, and you're confused by the fact that Queen Elizabeth I would have a letter for the Doctor.
Yeah, literally every episode of the Doctor is like, oh, I met this celebrity once. I convinced this guy to make pasta, and she's just really confused by this. To be fair, she's also confused by the fact that when Capaldi regenerates, she's like, oh, you're not the Doctor, you're old. She doesn't understand anything, does she?
There's a really great exchange with Matt Smith and Clara where he is trying to convince Clara that he has a job, that he works for UNIT and this is his job and he'd be great at having a job, which of course Clara doesn't believe him at all. And if we've learned anything from Matt Smith's Doctor in the episode with the cubes, yes, he would be terrible at having a day job. He would be bored within 5 seconds of it.
Yeah, he was very bored at UNIT all the time, just hated it.
Then we get one of my favorite effects that they use in this episode with the Time Lord paintings, where they reveal the painting of the fall of Arcadia, which is Gallifrey's second city and where the Time War ended, allegedly. And the editing starts to become also a bit more creative, where they cut back to this a couple more times in this first half of the episode, where when Matt Smith first sees the painting, he then it cuts to him in like a hallway somewhere where he's like, no more, and it starts to become a bit more art house with its shot choices and color and editing and things like that. But the painting itself is a 3D oil painting type thing, and it looks very, very cool, and is an effect that's held up really, really well because it doesn't need to look realistic. It can look like almost cartoony because it's this 3D thing, and Matt Smith explains it as Time Lord technology, where it's like bigger on the inside, and it made me laugh, where it's like the Time Lords really found one gimmick and just stuck with it. Like
yeah, the painting was amazing in 3D. It was incredible. I was like, oh my god, this painting, like, it's probably the best 3D effect of the film, honestly. And also, apparently, the phrase "bigger on the inside" was first used in the Three Doctors, which opened up season 10. I don't know. It just feels weird to imagine it not being used in the first 9 seasons. I I can't verify this because I don't know. I can't be bored.
We'll have to go back. Have to go back and watch every single episode up until season 10, taking careful note of what everybody says.
But yeah, it's amazing it took 10 years for that phrase to be used.
Yeah, they use it like literally every season now.
But yeah, Matt Smith is basically having PTSD flashbacks here.
Yeah, he's really, really good. I don't think there's a weak performance at all in this episode. But all three Doctors, Matt Smith, David Tennant, and John Hurt, steal every scene they're in.
There's one weak performance, and I'll get to him when we get to him. He's like a minor background character, but it's just the way he phrases things or whatever is weird.
Interesting. But Matt Smith goes on to explain how the War Doctor was at the fall of Arcadia, and the whole time watching it, I just kept thinking to myself, this is so much more compelling than the Timeless Child.
It really is, because it's his actions which is in effect here, whereas the Timeless Child is like, oh, here's your secret identity. It doesn't really matter much to you at the moment.
It's his own actions. It's his past that he's tried to forget and move past. It's something that has greatly affected the universe because the Time Lords and Daleks are no longer around, and has shaped the entire structure of New Who. And it also fits in the already pre-constructed canon. It's so good. And yeah, I mean, maybe the Timeless Child will be excellent, but it really doesn't give me the same feeling that the War Doctor story does.
Yeah, like the episode after The Timeless Child, she's like, "Oh, I'm forgetting about that now. I'm moving on. I'm not worried about that anymore." It's like, you just found out something really traumatic about yourself and your entire species.
Yeah, but that's Jodie's Doctor, isn't it?
Yeah,
Jodie's Doctor doesn't care at all.
Like at the beginning of this episode, the Doctor and Clara are very jovial. They're like, "Oh, let's go to the moon and all that." They're joking around. And it's kind of like the Doctor trying to move past rediscovering the War Doctor, but the plot forces him to face the consequences of his actions. Whereas the Timeless Child is like, yeah, let's just forget about that now.
Yeah, no, I just thought of something, and it might be an edit that I cut together because it's too funny. You know, towards the end of this episode, when all of the Doctors are like, together, you had to do it alone last time, but together we'll destroy Gallifrey.
Yes.
And we'll buy. And then it just cuts to Jodie's Doctor being like, "Oh, I'm too socially awkward to take part in this right now." So.
Oh God, I think we've mentioned that quote in like 5 or 6 episodes now. Yeah.
Besides weaponizing race, it's her worst moment.
Yeah, certainly.
We travel through the painting as Matt Smith's monologuing about how awful the things that the War Doctor had to do and how much he regrets them, and it looks super cool, and his monologue's really dramatic. And then it is the most perfectly timed orchestral opera singing kicks in. Yes. As we cut to a shot of the Dalek spaceships as Daleks start flying out towards Gallifrey, and it's the most Doctor Who's ever felt like Star Wars, and I'm so on board with it.
This Dalek song is probably my favorite Murray Gold track, like the one that goes dun 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 dun. It's really badass. You can imagine like a metal guitar album cover of it. It's really awesome.
This entire battle sequence really is the first glimpse we could get at what if Doctor Who had a bigger budget.
Yes.
What if Doctor Who was a blockbuster? It's really super exciting to look at, because even with this, the relatively small budget that Doctor Who had when they were doing this, they've done the best with what they had, and it looks incredible.
Yes, it really does. And just like the particles, all the debris just floating around is really effective, and just all the screams and just right out warfare is just really effective. Honestly, I want to hear this song in a concert. It's really fucking great. I really wanted to go to those Doctor Who at the proms we used to do every few years. Like, all of Murray Gold's songs in that were just awesome.
We follow a soldier as he's running through saying that Arcadia has fallen. Then he spots just the most battered looking TARDIS in the distance, and it's so cool. It's so cool. It's a very cool scene as we see the War Doctor's shadow, as they really do a good job of building him up as someone who is like awe-inspiring and intimidating, and when it's like in reality it's little John Hurt, but it's great.
Yeah. So the War Doctor steps out of shadow and his first words are, "I'm gonna need your gun," which is something that the Doctor really never says. And for the first lines, it's really impactful. It's like, oh, this is a darker, grittier Doctor. What is he gonna do with this gun?
Yeah, it's really good, and also, it plays way more into the reality that the War Doctor is the right decision. Because could you imagine Paul McGann's Doctor saying this?
No, not at all.
Like,
I can.
He would try to make out with a soldier before he took his gun.
I can maybe imagine Peter Davison's Doctor doing it because
he loves them. That's his go-to method. Yeah. We see Daleks surround a bunch of Gallifreyans. They're not Time Lords. These are just Gallifreyans. Because Gallifrey society is a caste system, like India or medieval times, where the higher ranked people are the Time Lords and they're allowed to regenerate, and you get lower and lower down the caste, you become a lesser and lesser citizen. But the Daleks surround this family of Gallifreyans, and we see a lot of kids. There's a lot of kid death in this episode a lot of mentioning of kid death in this episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah, and I can just imagine families gathered around to watch this because it's an anniversary special. It's a big event, and just being like, "Oh my god, there's a lot of kid death in it. Oh my god."
It's a major plot point.
Yes.
It's really the driving force of this entire episode is kid death.
Yes.
We see that the War Doctor has shot a message into a nearby wall using the soldier's gun that reads "No more," which is one of his catchphrases. He's got not the catchiest of catchphrases. They're very grumpy catchphrases, but it's cool. The shot of it's very nice as well. He's got good handwriting with that gun.
He really does. It's really impressive.
Then the TARDIS comes smashing through a wall into a bunch of Daleks, and what I really appreciated about this is when the Daleks are exploding, they included the little squid puppet inside that goes flying out of the Daleks as well.
I thought them being knocked over by a TARDIS is a little bit silly, because why don't the Time Lords just gather up all of their TARDISes and be like, oh, let's just play dodgems with them for a little bit, destroy all the Daleks.
Yeah, the Daleks have never been able to break into the TARDIS shields.
Yeah.
So yeah, why didn't the Time Lords just get into the... I suppose maybe they only have so many, and also the Time Lords being the Time Lords, there was probably a lot of bureaucracy and oh no, we can't use the TARDISes for that. They are very sophisticated models of time travel. Whereas the Doctor, he stole his one and it was a broken one anyway. So.
Yeah. But yeah, one of the Daleks becomes very dyslexic because he stares at the right and saying "no more," and he's like, "What are these words? What do they mean?" And then the Dalek blows up because he just cannot understand what's going on.
Reading is hard. We then cut to the Time Lord War Room, where we get one of our first proper looks at Time Lords in New Who. And I really enjoy them because their costumes are a little bit less exaggerated as they were in like classic Who, but I enjoy how even walking into the war room, they're like, the High Council said that we can't do this. They're just completely smothered by bureaucracy and are incredibly boring people.
Yeah, the first real look at the Time Lords in New Who would have been The End of Time, the last David Tennant special.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the Time Lords mentions the Omega Arsenal, which is, of course, in one of the villains in The Three Doctors, written by Bob Baker. So, a nice little reference there.
This bold, the War Commander Time Lord man, is also the Time Lord that Peter Capaldi punches into a black lady, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. I need to go back to the season... Was it 8? No, 9. The season 9 final, just because I remember really hating it at the time, and I wonder how it's going to hold up now that we know the Timeless Child exists. Yeah.
I remember enjoying... It's not Hellbent's okay. It's not great. Heaven Sent's the good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hellbent wasn't great. But I like the Time Lord stuff. I like Gallifrey. We'll get into it towards the end. But I love Gallifrey and Chibnall. But
Yeah, the show really doesn't stay consistent whether or not it wants the Time Lords to exist or not. Like, even Moffat's a bit loosey-goosey of the rules.
I mean, yeah, the Time Lords came back in Capaldi's era, and they did nothing with them.
Yeah.
Like, we were in a universe where the Time Lords were suddenly back in the world, and they get mentioned, like, once.
Like, the big arc of Season 8 was that the Doctor was looking for Gallifrey, and when he finds it at the end of Season 9, he's like, oh, I'm going to punch this guy into a black woman, and then he leaves.
And then they never mention Gallifrey again.
Yeah. Not until, like, the Season 12 final, where it gets destroyed again. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, they really missed something with Gallifrey. But don't worry, they'll 100% bring it back. Then the Time Lords are like, let's look in our big toolbox of world-ending weapons. What have we got? We've used them all. Except for one of them. Let's go see if it's still here. It was taken. Gam. And it was, what was it called? The Moment?
Yes.
Yeah, the big nuclear bomb that they created called the Moment, which I think is a pretty interesting world-ending device, because they were like, imagine if you gave a bomb a conscience.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Moment is, where you have to convince it that it's a good idea.
And that's something that's, again, from the end of time, which I'm not sure if it was mentioned in that episode whether or not it had consciousness, but it's something Russell T. Davies came up with. This is a very Russell T. Davies kind of feel in the episode, isn't it? It kind of ties into a lot of what Russell T. Davies set up, because
I think Moffat did a really good job of combining his version of Doctor Who with Davis's version of Doctor Who, and kind of blending those as well as he could into things that Classic Who set up.
Yeah, because before this, Moffat wasn't very interested in anything Gallifrey related, was he? Like Gallifrey.
I mean, he wasn't really interested in it afterwards either.
True.
Then we get a very nice looking shot of a very nice golden desert, as we see John Hurt gives a wee monologue where he's like, no more. Oh, no more. He's got a very gravelly voice. And he's walking, and the green screen for it, when we see him, doesn't look great. But, I mean, it looks better than the first episode of Doctor Who Flux did, so.
Yeah, something at least. But yeah, it's a very beautiful color palette.
John Hurt then takes out the Moment and is very confused, where he's like, it's just a box. Why is there never just a big red button? Which I really enjoyed. And also, we haven't actually mentioned it, but what do you think about John Hurt's Doctor costume?
Let me just get a proper image of it. But I quite like it. It's like a very tattered old leather, isn't it? It's kind of like a prototype of Eccleston's costume in a way.
Yeah, I think it bleeds really well into Eccleston's Doctor, in that, he's wearing this. It's actually, if you look at it, it's kind of a combination of the 8th Doctor and the 9th Doctor. With the vest that vest he's wearing under the leather jacket, it's very reminiscent of Paul McGann's Doctor, even with the little stopwatch. And then the leather jacket is like the 9th Doctor's leather jacket, a bit dusty.
It looks really nice.
It's a very good. It blends even better because he's the in between Doctor between 8 and 9.
Yeah.
That they don't talk about. It's a perfect blending of those two. I think it's a very clever wee costume.
Also, you forgot to mention that the Doctor is inside a barn, which is later revealed to be, I think, his childhood home.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Because we see in Hellbent. Is it Hellbent or Heaven Sent?
Hellbent.
We literally just In Hellbent, when Capaldi visits it, we get a look at the Doctor as a child, and also speak to potentially his mother.
Yeah.
Where it's left very open in the air if it's his mother or not, but it probably was. But yeah. He grew up in a barn, the smelly boy.
The smelly country boy.
And this is also where we get our introduction to Billie Piper in this episode. And I think she's great. I really enjoy what they did with her in this.
Yeah, you go into it. I think the fan expectations was, she's going to play Rose, and it's going to be exciting to see her again. but Rose wouldn't work. I think this works a lot better for her. She's having a lot of fun in the role here.
Yeah, it's a clever way of bringing her back and subverting expectation, because everyone was expecting Rose, and then no, she is the conscience of this bomb, and she's taken the form of Rose because it's from the Doctor's past or his future. She always gets those muddled up, which I really enjoyed. But she's not. She's specifically Bad Wolf version of Rose, as she's called, Bad Wolf. And I also think this episode takes the really quite brave choice of never having her and David Tennant interact.
Yeah.
Not even once.
There's a brief moment where John Hurt says, "Oh, thank you, Bad Wolf girl," and David Tennant kind of turns around, looks at Rose in a way, and he's like, he's contemplating what that means, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know anymore." But yeah, the early draft of this was to have the Ninth Doctor being... The Ninth Doctor would have had the moment. The moment would be a young girl in rags, described as the Raggedy Girl, and she would explain that the barn was... She would explain that the barn was crucible in which she would test the Ninth Doctor's worthiness. And I think this works a lot better to it being Rose.
Yeah.
Rather than just a random little girl, but we never really know. But yeah, Billy Piper teasing John Hurt for saying no more is really fun stuff. It really adds levity, because the last, last 5 minutes was really bleak and dramatic.
It's been very gritty Doctor Who. It's nice to have that break where you can go, ha. Oh wait, they're gonna kill a bunch of kids.
And there's a moment where John Hurt tries to touch the box, and he's like, the interface is hot, and Billy Piper's like, "Oh, I try my best." So
Yeah, it's it's a fun haha flirty sort of reference, but what I really appreciate is the Doctor still not getting it. He doesn't pick up on the flirty reference where she's like, "Oh, I am the box, but thanks, I am pretty hot." He's like, "There's something wrong with the interface."
I think the Doctor is pretty dense at times. This is a good example of it. And also, do you think the Ninth Doctor remembers the moment being Billy Piper, which is why he goes after Rose so much and Rose, which is why he's so persistent in getting Rose to travel with him?
Maybe it's a vague memory.
Yeah.
Because the
of course,
thing
a
with
vague
it
memory,
is,
yeah.
Because it's the multi-Doctor, the timelines get all messed up and they're not really supposed to remember it. But even Matt Smith vaguely remembers the Fez coming through the portal, so he could vaguely have memories of Bad Wolf and images of Rose in his head, and that's what leads him towards her. But yeah, it would be weird if he outright remembered this.
Yeah. Oh, and when she says, "In this form, I'm called Bad Wolf," and her eyes start glowing like the end of Parting of the Ways. Such a great little moment of fan service.
Very, very, very good. What I really like as well is it explains how the Doctor survived killing everybody, where he's talking with the moment and he's like, I'm not planning on having a future. I'm planning on dying and taking everybody with me, basically. And the moment's like, well, that's your punishment. If you kill everybody and press this bomb, you will survive. Only you will survive. And that's just the perfect... it adds even more to the Doctor's guilt, where it's like you will be punished for what you're doing by living and having to think, sit and think about what you did. Look at all those kids you killed. God.
But yeah, John Hurt is just perfect as the War Doctor. He's just so...
He brings a lot of gravitas
he really
to the
does.
Performance. Yeah, and just any moment you're waiting for something to pop out his chest.
And yeah. And he just seems so tired of everything that's going on, which is very relatable because John Hurt was probably very tired at this point of his life, sadly. But yeah.
Yeah, it's only a few years later that he would pass away, isn't it?
Yeah, he thankfully got to record some War Doctor audio drama, so that's something at least.
Mm-hmm. Also, the audio dramas with the War Doctor tend to have a younger version of John Hurt's Doctor, don't they?
Yeah.
So, this is a War Doctor who has been fighting for most of his regeneration.
Yeah.
It's not like a Capaldi sort of thing where they regenerate into an old guy. He regenerated into a young version of John Hurt and has just been fighting for so long.
Yeah, because in that prequel episode, he was basically given the vial, the little thing to drink to be the War Doctor because the Sisterhood was like, oh, you can't fight this war, but the War Doctor can. And yeah, his entire regeneration was to fight this war, which is insane. Also, there's kind of like a Christmas Carol kind of vibe to this, because the moment is like, don't you want to see what it will turn you into? And then, she kind of, I think she opens up the vortex to have the multi-Doctor adventure happen.
Mm-hmm. It's very much, let's take a look into your future, Scrooge, and see what it would be like. But kind of the reverse on it, because he sees his future and goes, yes, okay, I'll kill all the kids. I like these guys. When she opens up the portal to combine the Doctor timelines, Red Fez falls through, because we are in a Matt Smith era, and you've got to have some of the Moffat quirkiness in there.
And it takes a while for us to realize why the Fez flies through, because we don't see it happen for a while.
Then we find out that the painting is really only there to prove as proof that the letter really is from Elizabeth, as if her seal wasn't enough proof. Where in it she describes the Doctor as, being bestowed upon as the curator of the gallery and all of its belongings to protect the things within, which isn't something I picked up on my first viewing. But afterwards I went, now I'm even more curious as to who the curator actually is when we meet him.
Yeah, it's not something you think of immediately, which is a nice little foreshadowing.
Then we get a bit of Moffat time travel, let's create a wee puzzle box thing. Not his best puzzle box, it's pretty basic time travel stuff. As they're walking off with Kate, a scientist man called McGillip, his phone rings and he's like, hello? Huh? But you were just... Oh my god, okay, I'll do what you say. And I wonder who he could be on the phone to in this time travel show about a time traveler.
I think this McGillip guy is the worst actor of the special. He doesn't sell it to me. But yeah, as for a puzzle box, I think it's nice and simple. You need it to be nice and simple. It's an anniversary special.
There's bigger stuff going on.
You don't need it to be complicated.
Then we see a painting of Elizabeth I standing there with David Tennant's Doctor. It's a pretty decent looking oil painting as well. They captured David Tennant's likeness pretty decently in it.
Yeah, it's really great.
And through that painting, we transition into Russell T Davis's era Doctor Who, complete with soundtrack.
Yeah, people in my screening were very excited, being like, "Oh my god, David Tennant's here! David Tennant's here!" They were really fangirling out.
People really love David Tennant as the Doctor.
Yeah, a lot of people at this point had quit watching the show because David Tennant left. I think they only came back to this because David Tennant was in it and Billy Piper also.
But hopefully it was a good introduction to them as to Matt Smith's Doctor right as he was coming out the door. Yeah, I'd be interested as if the 50th anniversary actually brought anybody back into watching Doctor Who that had dropped off after David Tennant left, because they were like, oh, I can't watch Doctor Who without Mr. David Tennant to gawk at. And then they didn't watch Matt Smith's era, but came back for the 50th and then stuck around for Capaldi's, which would be surprising, because I don't think if you were invested in David Tennant and Matt Smith's era before, you're not getting through that first season of Capaldi.
Yeah. I think a lot of people came back on at this point and kind of dropped off when Capaldi came the Doctor, because his stories were kind of darker and bleaker, and his first season isn't great in the first place.
His first season's pretty rough. His second season and third season are great, but it's a rough first season for sure.
Yeah.
But then we see the Doctor come galloping out of his TARDIS with his horse that he's finally gotten, since he's not with Rose or any of his companions. Nobody can tell him not to have a horse. If you remember back to the Girl in the Fireplace, where he wants to keep the horse, but he's not allowed. It looks exactly like the horse he's got. It's the white majestic one. So he's gone back and he's got himself a horse as he's riding out with Queen Elizabeth I. And they're having a romantic picnic.
And it really works to have David Tennant be playing the Doctor at the end of his life, because, he's about to make another choice, a big choice, to sacrifice himself again at the end of time.
I really... so they're having this romantic picnic, the Doctor and the Queen. And he's like, he hops up to his feet and he gets down on one knee and he's like, Queen Elizabeth, will you marry me? And she goes, oh my god, yes, I will. And he immediately stands up and goes, ha, got ya. Like, I really enjoyed him in this.
And then Queen Elizabeth was like, oh, I'm the Queen of England. And then David Tennant's like, I'm not English.
Yeah, it's really good. The only thing that I don't like, and I can't tell if it's on purpose, I like to hope that it's on purpose because that would be a nice touch, but also when dealing with a wild animal, sometimes you just can't control them. When David Tennant is walking backwards and forwards and we're cutting between wide shots and close-ups, the horse is facing different angles every single time.
Yeah, it's just impossible to control where the horse is looking, so...
We also get a reference to Blink because it's a Moffat episode and he loves to... I think they really balance the line between fan service and Doctor Who storytelling with this pretty well. But he pulls out his machine that goes ding, and it dings.
It goes ding every time he says ding, which is my favorite touch to it. And he also uses it to pirate comics, which is against the law, Doctor. You shouldn't do that.
Then the Doctor accuses Queen Elizabeth of being a Zygon, which is the big villain that they brought back for this episode, and what they would bring back again for Capaldi's era of Doctor Who. And there's a moment that happens in this episode a little bit later on with David Tennant and Matt Smith when they're talking to the Zygons and also Unit, which is basically the prototype for Capaldi's best scene when he gives his war speech. Like, almost beat for beat, except in this one, they complete it in, like, a second, where in Capaldi's, it's, like, a solid chunk of the episode.
And, here, there's a running joke that the Zygons are good kissers, apparently, because Matt Smith and David Tennant have a whole banter about this. It's like... I
really enjoy their banter about it.
It gets dangerously too close to hentai for me.
There's a really great line when David Tennant, we'll get to it when it comes up. David Tennant says something like, the Zygons are super dangerous, etc., or something like that. And then Matt Smith's like, and yeah, he checked. It's like, you would know. Like,
but yeah, the Zygons are a perfect villain for an anniversary special because they can kind of be background characters. The plot doesn't need to be about them.
Yeah, they're dopey looking. They're not really much of a threat, but they shapeshift and stuff. And they tied in to create the best moment for Capaldi's Doctor when he turns into the Doctor in his second series.
I'm still waiting for an episode to open up on the Doctor just going on his regular adventures, whatever, and then a second Doctor comes in and is like, that's not the real Doctor, I'm the real Doctor, and it turns out the entire time we've been following a Zygon Doctor. That'd be incredible. I'd love that episode.
That would be good. Write it down. Make it into, submit it for Big Finish's writing contest.
I should try that. Yeah, good point.
But then we see the horse transform into the Zygon. It was the horse all along. And David Tennant that are running, and Queen Elizabeth's like, oh my god, what do you mean the Zygon was your horse? And David Tennant, not wanting to ever lose a horse again, is like, well, I need a new horse now. He loves having horses.
Maybe that's... Do you think that Zygon was really into being a horse, just having David Tennant on his back riding around?
Well, he does make out with him for quite a bit afterwards, so... In
the horse form.
Yeah. Do you think if David Tennant hadn't, ran in, like, didn't have Rose as his companion, then run into Martha, and then run into Donna, that he would have just had a horse for his companion? Because he seems to really enjoy having a horse.
I'd think so, yes. I mean, he does have a horse in that new book that came out where he's like...
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He loves it. The moment when he tells Queen Elizabeth to run off because she needs to stay alive, and she's like, well, I need you alive for our wedding day, and gives him a big kiss, and she runs off. And then just David Tennant being like, oh, nice one, Doctor. Good job there. Just messing with time, you idiot. I really, really enjoy. I also think that this anniversary special makes fun of Doctor Who a little bit every now and then. With a tongue-in-cheek way that I kind of appreciate, where and you see it in this scene here where David Tennant runs past a bunny, and he stops and he's like, Oh, clever, clever. Well, little do you know, I'm the oncoming storm, the bringer of darkness, and you're a bunny. Like where he goes into his big doctor monologue.
He gives the exact same speech he does in Voyage of the Dam, which is coincidentally our next episode next month.
Yeah.
That is a cute rabbit.
It's a chunky boy for sure. Then the Doctor runs into Queen Elizabeth I, and then Queen Elizabeth I runs into the Doctor and Queen Elizabeth I, and we get the fun, oh, he's the clone, no, you're the clone, as they circle each other, and the Doctor's like, I don't know which one to shoot, so he shoots both of them with his gun that he carries on at all times. But as they're circling around, I was talking about how I don't think there's a weak performance. I don't know how I feel about Queen Elizabeth I's performance in this. Sometimes she feels a bit hammy.
Yeah, it does feel a bit pantomime-y, doesn't it? I think John Hurt kind of criticized her performance in a way, because she's like, that's not how Queen Elizabeth would speak. She wouldn't have a strong English accent, because she traveled around a lot and would have had another accent or something. But yeah, she is a bit pantomime-y, isn't she? And then, of course, the ding machine stops working at a very convenient time.
Downloaded too many comics. Then the time portal opens up, and the Doctor calls both the Zygon and regular Queen Elizabeth to get behind him, because, that's a problem for later. Right now, just deal with this giant time portal that's opened up. As, yet again, another Fez comes through. I really enjoy where the Doctor's like, oh my god, it's a rip in reality, anything could happen. And then the Fez comes through, he's like, for example, that.
I love how he's just confused, because it's almost as if he's not used to Moffat's quirkiness yet. He's like, a Fez? Why is there a Fez here? But yeah, I also like how he's just like, oh, I can't be bothered with this B plot for now, or the A plot is here. We need to establish what's going on.
Then the Doctor steps into the room with the statues, and he steps on the stone dust, as he calls it, and he picks it up. He calls Osgood in, and he's like, examine this stone dust I just stepped in. But he's got the great line where he's like, have you got a name? And he's like, yes. He's like, oh, good. I've always wanted to meet somebody called Yes. Well, I love Matt Smith. He's so good.
And also, while we're talking, one of the statues is actually Colin Baker, Peter Davison, and Sylvester McCoy underneath a big sheet, as seen in the Five-ish Doctors, which I really I don't know.
They do a very good job standing very still.
I don't know if it's actually them in this episode or not. That's something that bothers me. I don't know if it was just for the Five-ish Doctors.
For a joke.
Yeah. But I really hope it is them. But yeah, Matt Smith really turns into my area manager in the story. He's like, oh, I need this on my desk tomorrow morning, ASAP, pronto, LOL.
What I really enjoy is I saw this on a Doctor Who fan page recently as a meme, and it was like, I really appreciate how Matt Smith's Doctor is very much an old man in a young guy's body, where he's just saying a bunch of shorthand slogans that he's heard but has no idea what they mean.
Yeah.
Like,
and then he winks, and his wink does a ding. I never noticed that before.
That was the one part of this episode that kind of annoyed me, editing-wise specifically, because I think the editing's really clever in this and really experimental in a way Doctor Who isn't usually. But that cartoony ding as he winks was a step too far.
Yeah, I never noticed that before.
But then the Doctor walks past the Fez, and because he's Matt Smith's Doctor, he is indescribably attracted to it as he picks it up and puts it on his head. And I think Clara's got the line like, is there ever going to be a day where you could just walk past a Fez without putting it on? He's like, never going to happen. Which, has that happened yet? I feel like Capaldi's Doctor or Jodie's has seen a Fez and gone, no thank you.
I don't know.
Maybe
Jodie.
Did Jodie do it when she was trying on her costume?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I remember. I think I remember Jodie in the Fez. It's been a while.
Yeah, but then she took it off, being like, no, don't like it, which is proof of the Doctor changing. I think that happened. I don't remember.
But yeah, it kind of turns into Sherlock as we walk into a room and discover broken glass, and the Doctor's like, "Oh, from the angle from the glass, it was broken from the inside." And yeah, it really turns.
And then the editing makes sure that we understand that if you smash glass from one direction, it blows out that way. But if you smash the glass from another direction, it blows out that. It makes sure that we understand how breaking glass works.
When you said One Direction, I just thought of the band One Direction.
He's a hit Marvel actor now, so
He is, isn't he?
He is. He's Star Fox.
My favorite character. Is Star Fox a fox or just a regular guy?
He's just a regular guy.
Okay, why is he called Star Fox?
It's just his name. He likes barrel rolls. You need to watch the Eternals, and you'll not find out more. You won't find out more because I just spoiled a bit of the post credits for you.
Oh, goodness me.
And we find out that there used to be figures in these paintings of landscapes, and now that they aren't, the figures have gotten out, which is a cool Doctor Who concept of something hiding in a painting and climbing out of it. But we find out, it's just the Zygons. Who cares?
It was also kind of done at the end of Family of Blood, where the little girl was sent into Was she sent into a painting? Or am I thinking of
the little girl is sent into a dimension between dimensions, right, where you catch her in the she lives in the corner of your eye. She's in mirror reflections and in the corner, and again in the corner of your eye. She's everywhere and nowhere.
Okay. Somebody was... Oh, I might be thinking of the Witches. Roald Dahl the Witches, where there's people trapped in paintings. They keep them moving slightly every day. It's a good concept, though.
Very possible. But yeah, it's a fun concept. Then the time portal opens up, and Matt Smith's Doctor vaguely remembers them, as he's like, oh, wait, no, not this. And then he's like, oh, wait, I'm wearing the fez. It's my turn. Yay. And... They're very topsy-turvy on how much Matt Smith remembers and doesn't remember. He seems to remember this first 10 minutes of the three doctors meeting and then doesn't remember the rest.
He probably remembers the fez because it wasn't involving any of our doctors. It's more like a calling signal.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
And plus he probably remembers it being kind of like how we remember dreams, just very vaguely. I kind of like how he hesitates for a second. He's like, oh, god damn it, the A-plot is here. I'm busy investigating the paintings.
Yeah, he throws the fez in and then doesn't wait to find out if it's okay and just jumps in himself. And then we finally get our first meeting of David Tennant and Matt Smith together. And I just want to say off the bat, I think these two have incredible chemistry together.
They really do. And they really waited quite a while for them to meet finally, because it's been 27 minutes exactly.
Yeah, we are a quarter of the way through this entire special before the doctors end up together.
More like a third.
Yeah, more like a fifth.
But also the Zygons are kind of perfect for the anniversary special, because there's multiple Queen Elizabeths and multiple doctors, which is a nice little touch. Everyone has multiples.
Yeah. And then we get the famous Doctor Who penis joke.
Which shows that 10 is a grower, not a shower.
Indeed. I really like when David Tennant and Matt Smith end up in sync with their movements.
Yeah.
For example, when they flip their sonic screwdrivers and put them away at the same time. And we see it later on when they sit down and then cross their legs and fold their arms at the same time as well.
I also love them just making fun of each other. It goes back to the three doctors when the first doctor first appears, and he's like, so these are my replacements, a dandy and a clown. He just always makes fun of himself. I
also like when they both put glasses on and they're like, oh, nice.
Also, watching Matt Smith interact with David Tennant, his energy is way much higher than David Tennant's. It's amazing to watch, just him keeping up. I
also really like, I always enjoyed Matt Smith whenever he put the glasses on, because those are Amy's glasses. It's keeping that bit of Amy with him.
Oh yeah.
I always really appreciated that about his character. Then the Queen Elizabeths each kiss David Tennant as they run away, and Matt Smith looks on with disgust as after they leave he's like, one of those was a Zygon, right? And he's like, yeah, I get it. And they're so good together.
They really are. And also we cut to Clara at the other side, basically listening in on a Big Finish audio drama. She's like, hey, what's going on here? This is probably the best the Doctor has ever gotten on of himself. Usually it just ends in arguments, but here Matt Smith and David Tennant are kind of best friends.
They're very similar personalities. They're both very big and energetic. Matt Smith doubly so to David Tennant's Doctor, but they're both big bubbly personalities that like to give dramatic speeches. I would be interested to see Matt Smith's Doctor interact with Capaldi, or or for any of them to interact with the Ninth Doctor. They're very different personalities, whereas these two are very similar. Which I think what makes it interesting when the War Doctor appears, because then it's a very different personality
Certainly.
interacting with these two.
I imagine the 10th Doctor and the 13th Doctor interact very similarly as well in the comic books.
And then I really enjoy how David Tennant and Matt Smith start arguing with one another a little bit, where he's like, okay, what happens next? David Tennant says to Matt Smith, and he's like, oh, I have no idea, I don't remember. And David Tennant tries to say something snippy to him, and he's like, well, obviously you're not paying enough attention because I don't remember. Let's reverse the polarity. And they both pull out their sonic screwdrivers, and then it's you get the fun bit where it's like, I reverse the polarity. I am reversing the polarity. Yeah, well, so am I. You're reversing my reverse. We're confusing the polarity.
Which I really love that because it's also a John Pertwee reference, and I'm in for all the John Pertwee references in this episode specifically. But yeah, just before that polarity moment, Kate is looking for something, and she's like, oh, it's either in the 70s or 80s archive, depending on data protocol, which is a reference to the fact that the John Pertwee era stories are kind of confused in where it's set, because it's either in the 70s or the 80s, depending on who you ask. Because it's definitely in the 80s, because that's where Unit is established and all that, but in future stories, the timeline kind of gets muddled up. So yeah, we discussed kind of this in a Canine and Company.
Fun. Then John Hurt falls through the time portal bit, and he's like, I'm looking for the Doctor. Do any of you two know him? And they're like, oh, well, ha ha ha. And he's like, you guys must be his companions. Oh, they get younger all the time. But then David Tennant and Matt Smith pull out their sonic screwdrivers to show that's a fun sentence, to show that they are the Doctor. A fact that John Hurt finds most disturbing, and he's got the pretty fun line where he's like, am I having a midlife crisis? Because obviously this is now the oldest the Doctor's been with Matt Smith, yet also the youngest actor to ever portray him.
Yeah, it's wild how Doctor Who just casts age. Like, oh, John Hurt is the oldest, but Matt Smith is the youngest. It's weird.
And then John Hurt becomes every classic Who fan ever, as he steps towards David Tennant and Matt Smith as they point their sonic screwdrivers at them, and he's like, why are you pointing them like that? They're scientific instruments, not weapons. Which is a joke that he'll make again in about 5 seconds time when they point the sonic screwdrivers at the guards, and he's like, what are you going to do? Assemble a shelf?
Yeah, I really appreciate this because he's very much like me in this episode, just being like, yeah, you don't need to use a sonic screwdriver every fucking episode. Put it away.
There's also a reference to the Three Doctors here.
Yep.
Where Clara turns to Kate and he's like, I think there's 3 Doctors now. And she's like, yeah, there's a precedent for that happening.
All the 3 Doctors references in this episode, I'm all here for.
Then the guards are confused by the portal and like, what sort of witchcraft is this? And Matt Smith instantly clicks. He's like, yes, witchcraft, haha, there's a witch in there. And he starts talking to Clara, trying to get her to pretend to be a witch, and she's just not on board for it at all.
I honestly find her little speech here kind of like adorable, where she's like, oh yeah, speak on. And then one of the guards gets really frightened. He kind of takes a step back.
And then we get another bit of fan service where Clara asks what's going on, and Matt Smith's like, oh, it's a timey-wimey thing. And John Hurt's like, timey-wimey? And David Tennant leans over and is like, oh, I have no idea where he picks that stuff up from.
Yeah, I love how John Hurt here is just like a Shakespearean actor being like, what nonsense do you speak on this show? What the hell are you saying?
Yeah.
And then John Hurt makes fun of Matt Smith's acting, being like, are you capable of speaking without flapping your hands about?
Yeah, that's great as well. I also the line that Matt Smith says, making fun of David Tennant specifically, is when Queen Elizabeth comes back and David Tennant's like, stop, that's not the Queen, that's an alien in disguise. And Matt Smith's like, and he checked.
Do you think Stephen Moffat is attracted to Zygons?
I mean, who isn't? Then we come into what is my favorite scene in this entire episode, when the 3 Doctors get locked in the Tower of London.
Yeah.
It is hands down my favorite scene.
Yeah, it's split across many scenes, but yeah, it goes from funny to heartbreaking to all emotions. It's a really good example of how great these 3 actors are together.
Then we cut to Osgood working out why there's stone dust all over the floor. And she figures it out pretty quickly that the statues were destroyed. And I think it does a pretty good job of building the tension a bit as we slowly push in on her face as she like grabs for her inhaler, and she's like, "Oh, we need to go." As the Zygons start to move from behind her, it's a good wee tension building scene.
You know what would have made the scene better? If one of the statues was Bok, and he just lasered all the Zygons away.
He's too powerful to be in this anniversary. You can't fit a god like that in. Osgood gets pushed into a corner as she starts chanting to herself that the Doctor will save her. As the Zygon transforms into her and takes her inhaler, which is an important plot point. Also, the Zygon turning into her becomes a very important plot point later on in Capaldi's era with the Zygon invasion and the Zygon inversion. A lot of setting up stuff for the second season of Capaldi.
Yeah, it's really strange.
Yeah, why not include that stuff in his first season? Make his first season good, maybe?
Something very disturbing about an alien taking your form and looking in all of your memories. It's really disturbing. Human Osgood uses the Fourth Doctor's scarf to trip up the Zygon Osgood, which is a great example of how effective the Fourth Doctor's scarf really is.
Yeah, and she grabs the inhaler on her way out again. The name Osgood I always remember because it's way too similar to Oswin when Clara was the lady inside the Dalek.
Yeah.
And she was like, "My name's Oswin." It's just stuck in my head as those are very similar names for the Matt Smith era.
Yeah. But yeah, Kate takes Clara to the Black Archive and it is revealed that every staff member gets a memory wipe at the end of the day. So that's kind of like really messed up because they don't remember what's going on.
Yeah, the guard's like, she's like, having a good day, and he's like, "Oh, it's my first day here," and then she like leans over to Clara's like, "He's been here for 10 years," which it's pretty messed up.
Like what are these people telling their loved ones, being like, "Oh, my first day of work is tomorrow. I have to get ready." The next day, I have to get ready for my first day at work tomorrow.
Yeah, it adds up a lot of questions like that. This is again also just really setting up stuff for the Zygon inversion with Capaldi. Like that, the memory wipe stuff really plays in to his war speech when, at the end of it, they're like, "Oh, good job doing that speech, Doctor." And he's like, "Yeah, that was definitely the first time I had to say that for it to work." As we look at those memory wipe things. This entire episode is really a prototype Zygon inversion. I never picked up on it before watching it last night. It's strange.
Yeah, that Zygon inversion episode is really a sequel episode. Mm-hmm. Like one of the few sequel episodes of Doctor Who. Speaking of sequel episodes, did you know the new 5 Doctor box set is going to have a sequel episode to Tomb of the Cybermen? I'm excited for that.
Nice.
Like it takes place right after Tomb of the Cybermen.
Interesting. I'm trying to think of any character from Tomb of the Cybermen that is interesting to watch again, other than the Doctor, and I can't think of a single one.
Fair.
We also find out that Clara's been here before, and that unit screen every companion the Doctor's ever had before they go on adventures with them, as we see photos of Rory and Amy and Susan and everybody that have essentially been interviewed by UNIT before the Doctor travels with them, which is a big plot point they've never touched on again.
They even have a photograph of Chameleon, one of the worst Doctor Who companions. He's a robot, right? But he was broken. The prop was broken, so they were like, "Oh, we got rid of him like 2 episodes." They tried to replace K9 with that guy, with Chameleon. I'll try to point him out when you see him.
Yeah, I saw the image of him, the silver robot dude being like, yeah. But it's weird that they would screen Susan, don't you think? Because isn't she a Time Lord as well?
Yeah, she's related to the Doctor.
Yeah, she's the Doctor's granddaughter, so why would UNIT need to screen her?
It's really creepy.
We also see not Matt Smith. Oh my God, we see Captain Jack's vortex manipulator.
Yeah.
And, we mentioned earlier, or I guess you mentioned earlier, that Moffat was considering bringing Captain Jack back for this, but didn't want to work with John Barrowman. And I think this is his way of getting around that.
It was actually Good Man Goes to War, the mid-season final of season 6. You stupid man.
Why did you hurt me? But yeah, this is a way of including Captain Jack without bringing John Barrowman back.
Yeah. And I love how the vortex manipulator is another form of time travel, but yet it's frowned upon because of how, I don't know how
it's like unstable, like not safe. It's like you're ripping parts of the vortex open to time travel.
Yeah. But yeah, also in this scene, Kate was supposed to have a line about the old Peter Cushing movies where they would walk past a movie poster and Kate would say something like, some companions wrote a movie based on the Doctor's adventures. Of course, this isn't historically accurate, and they couldn't get the rights to the movie poster, so that line got scrapped, which is a shame, but I understand because that's a lot of extra money that could be spent on special effects.
Then we find out that the thing that the Doctor's been scratching into the prison cell wall is the codes to Captain Jack's vortex manipulator, or the coordinates basically to where they are in time and space, I guess, is what they really are. Which he engraved in the wall, and a man with hair takes a photo of them. That's how I can describe that guy. I've never seen him before. That one scenery general scientist man takes a photo, and he sends that off to Kate and that. And we're about to come up to a shocking reveal, Scott, don't you think?
Oh my god, yes. So shocked.
As two scientists start walking up. It's Osgood and the other guy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That walk up. And Clara's very shocked that they've appeared, and she's like, why have these people showed up? And which Kate replies, they must have disposed of the bodies quickly. Which you're like, disposed of the bodies? What are you talking about? And she goes on to say how she really does get into character, which, yeah, it's a good thing that the Zygons have that little asterisk where it's like they also know your entire history. Otherwise, it would have been the biggest plot hole that somehow she could give all this exposition and still be a Zygon. Like...
Very, very, very useful abilities. There's a moment where Kate transforms into a Zygon, and there's a sort of like half transformation, which actually looks pretty decent. Looks pretty horrific.
Yeah, she spews up a bunch of goop as she's turns into a CGI person briefly.
And again, it gives a theory of is Stephen Moffat attracted to these Zygons? Does he want to make out with Zygons?
Yes. Again, who does not want that to happen? But Clara grabs the vortex manipulator and puts the code in because the Zygon was stupid enough to leave their phone unlocked in front of Clara, which allowed Clara to see the code and somehow know how the vortex manipulator works. She's Clara, she gets it, she can do anything, and she vortex manipulates her way out.
Yeah, Clara is instantly smart in every situation, which really got on my nerves during this era of Doctor Who, especially in Series 7, where she's so inconsistent about who she is. Like, this woman didn't know what Wi-Fi was, like, 8 episodes ago.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Then we come to my favorite scene in this entire episode / special, which is the scene with the 3 doctors chatting in prison, which is also the scene that I think I either used for the cold open or for the introduction to the episode part that comes after we do all the trivia stuff. But this is definitely a scene that I included in because it is just chef kiss X. I could watch a 50th special of just this scene repeated for an hour and I would be happy.
Yeah, it's the scene where all the 3 doctors are recounting their experience of the war. 1 who hasn't experienced the war yet, 2 who has experienced the war and still feels grief about it, and 3 Matt Smith, who is like over it. He's kind of like in denial about it, which is really good contrast between the 3 doctors. It really adds emotional weight into what the Doctor went through. It must have been so weird for David Tennant and Billy Piper to attach themselves to this, being like, we can't interact with each other on screen at all during this. Like, we're good friends and we can't speak to each other on set. Well, we can speak to each other on set, but not in the show. which must be very weird. Do you think David Tennant went into method acting and just pretended not to see Billy Piper on set?
It would be interesting. I doubt it, because he's reportedly such a lovely human being, and but it would be interesting. There's a really great shot when the War Doctor asks Matt Smith how many kids died on Gallifrey, if he ever counted the kids that died on Gallifrey, and Matt Smith kind of hesitates, and then it's like, nope, I don't know, I have no idea. There's just the shot of David Tennant staring at Matt Smith and we'll get into a little bit of film class here. The way that it's framed, as you can see with David Tennant's eyeline, he has all this thinking space to the left of him, where he's very much, because he's in his own head, judging himself, being like, why would I say that? Because we find out David Tennant has definitely counted every single one of the kids, and he's now judging himself and thinking about what kind of man he's about to turn into with Matt Smith, all through that one shot, and it's very, very good.
And then we have Matt Smith against a wall, and his space is he's to the left, so he's looking to the left, at the left of his frame, so there's all this baggage behind him as well.
It's very, very good. We also get a really fun bit where John Hurt asks Matt Smith's doctor how old he is, and he says, I don't know, 1200 and something, unless I'm lying. I'm always lying about my own age now. That's how old I am. I only know when I'm lying or when I'm not, which is the best explanation I've ever gotten in Doctor Who canon about how old the Doctor is, because he's been 900 like 3 times.
Yeah. But also, we have to add the Timeless Child. He's like billions and billions of years old at this point.
Yeah. The Doctor's age is the infinity symbol.
But even if he was like 900, he wouldn't be able to keep track, because he's always time traveling. It's impossible to keep track of your own birthdays and shit.
The performances in this scene are so strong. We were talking about how goofy David Tennant and Matt Smith were acting together beforehand, but now when it's David Tennant reveals that he has counted the amount of kids that died, it's like 4 billion and something. I personally didn't count, that's why I don't remember. And he gets, very annoyed with Matt Smith and being like, you forgot 400 years, is that all it takes? And Matt Smith starts, getting back in his face. And it's you feel the tension through both of their performances. Like, it is perfectly done.
And also going back to the lighting, David Tennant has light on his face, whereas Matt Smith is in complete darkness, which really adds to the drama. And it's pretty cool to see a character argue with himself to this day.
Yeah, and to have it so well written as well, and so well performed. Like, this is some of my favorite Doctor Who stuff right now. Absolutely. I could just sit and listen to people talk for ages, and I'm like, yes, good Doctor Who.
And then the War Doctor says, I have no idea who you are, either of you, which is a complete contrast to the Matt Smith Doctor and David Tennant Doctor completely ignoring John Hurt's existence, which is an interesting contrast.
Yeah, and then also the machine... the bomb played by Billy Piper. The moment I got there. The moment is like, these are the men that you'll be: the man that regrets and the man that forgets. And we don't talk about Eccleston because he didn't want to come back.
Stephen Moffat certainly loved the blank who blanks, doesn't he? Like the Impossible Girl, the girl who waited, the man who waited,
the Raggedy Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does, but it's an effective way of remembering some important information, especially in this case where he makes it rhyme.
Yeah.
it's always easy to remember a rhyme. It's the man who regrets, and what was the other?
You forgot yourself. It's always easy to remember, and you just forgot. Wow, it's a man who regrets, man who forgets.
That was the joke, Scott.
You're not funny.
The joke was this: forget, and I forgot.
Okay.
It was a funny.
No.
It was a funny joke.
No, your life is a funny joke.
All I'm taking from that is my performance was so believable. You truly believed I forgot.
Well, you forget everything, so
What did I? What?
Who are you, Donna Noble?
The moment tells John Hurt that he has to decide if he's going to destroy everybody and that his time's running out to choose. And John Hurt makes the great decision of no, just not going to do that, which is great. And then there's a brief bit of levity to this scene where Matt Smith starts laughing. He's like, "Oh, I just realized this is what I'm like when I'm alone, haha," which is, you know, a much needed little bit of comedic relief from the super dramatic scene we just had.
Yeah, that laugh to me strikes as kind of like a Joker's laugh. It's very kind of creepy in a way. You know what I mean?
He's just trying to ease the tension. He's just trying to help.
Just the way David Tennant's like, "Oh, did I miss something funny?" It's like it feels like Matt Smith is cracked with insanity in a way.
Then we get the, I thought, really fun reveal, because they were locked inside the tower, and they scanned it with John Hurt's sonic screwdriver, and like, oh, it's wood. We'll never get through it. It'll take centuries for the sonic to figure out how to dismantle the door with that. And we get the reveal of David Tennant throwing his sonic screwdriver up and down in the air, where Billy Piper's like, you know, it's the same software but in a different case. And he's like, same software, different. And you get that big reveal where, haha, yes, all our three Sonics are actually the same Sonic, and we can undo the door with this awesome revelation, which was a lot of fun. That then gets like punched in the face by Clara, which I do also enjoy.
It's such a good twist on the brilliant decision of being like, oh, this is all the Sonic screwdrivers can open the door now. I mean, Clara just opens the door. It was unlocked.
Didn't you? I love the line where she's like, "Didn't you check if it was locked?" And John Hurt just goes, "Well, it was supposed to be locked." It was like
And there's a bit where Clara flirts with David Tennant. It's like she's like, "Oh, nice suit."
But then Queen, which one is this? Elizabeth, the first? Is this this Queen?
Yes.
Elizabeth. Yeah. Then the Queen comes back in, and she's all like, haha, the Earth's going to get destroyed because I'm a Zygon. Wink, 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 wink. Follow me as I show you how the Earth's going to get destroyed.
I do think the whole which one's the Zygon thing is kind of like the weakest part of the episode. It's still enjoyable in small doses, but it kind of gets grating after a while, I think.
Yeah, but, you know, the Zygons are just there for our, like, D storyline, like, just to pad out that runtime a little bit more.
Yeah, it's pretty much one of the few things that ties it to Classic Who, really. So there's not much Classic Who representation here.
Then we find out, we follow Osgood as she's walking through the bowels of the unit facility, and she finds Kate strung up against the wall with a bunch of Zygon goop on her. And I think it's my least favorite looking practical effect in this entire episode. It looks cheap.
Yeah, it looks like knitting. You know what I mean? It looks like just wool.
It does. Yeah, it does just look like she's got some wool and some rubber tubes on her, and they've gone, good enough.
She kind of looks like the lady who knitted Tom Baker's scarf, just covered in all the wool.
And this is where we get the revelation again that the Zygons were hiding in the art. I feel like we were already kind of figured that out by this point, but
yeah, but it's more of an explanation of why they're hiding in the art. It's basically a suspended animation rather than paintings coming to life. We're in the past wanting to go to the future, and that's how they stay alive for so long.
The Zygon homeworld got destroyed in the Time War, and they're wanting to terraform Earth to make it Zygonia, is what I'm calling the Zygon homeworld now.
Other planets being involved in the Time War, I always forget about that. You don't really get as much about that in Doctor Who, really.
Yeah, well, you know, they talk about the Time War, like, ravishing the universe and causing a bunch of destruction and disrupting so many different planets, but whenever we see it, here's Gallifrey. Gallifrey's in trouble, not the other planets. It's just Gallifrey. And, you know, when they block the Time War with the, you know, time lock stuff, it's just Gallifrey you can't go to. You can go wherever else you like.
Yeah, like the only time we've only really mentioned other planets being involved is like in Rose, where we said the Ultron home planet got involved in the Time War, and now obviously the Zygon Time War, and nothing else. I don't know other planets have been involved, and we haven't really seen any consequences of that before or since, really.
And I was saying earlier that I really enjoyed when David Tennant laughed at the Queen when he was like, "Haha, gotcha," after he proposed. But I love this scene just as much when he starts talking to the Queen. He's like, "And you know how I know you're a fake? How I know you're a Zygon? See, you're got it all wrong. Your face is all blotchy. Your breath is just horrible." He just starts insulting her left and right, and of course the reveal comes that she's the real Queen, and he's just been insulting her this entire time. And he's like, "Oh no." It's a wonderful bit of comedic relief.
I mean, it's obviously the real Queen Queen Elizabeth, but we knew that. But it's still funny. It got a laugh in the cinema at least. And there's the point where she calls herself weak and feeble.
Yeah, because she's from the olden times. Then the Doctor gets married to the Queen, in a scene that I really enjoy. I like the concept of the Doctor attending his own wedding.
Yeah, so do I.
And being his own groomsman it's great.
Like he has 3 witnesses for a wedding. 2 of them is himself.
I also really enjoy how much Clara is into the wedding. Like, she is fully on board.
And also, one comment that bothers me is John Hurt, as David Tennant, is kissing his new bride. He's like, does this always happen? And then Matt Smith's like, it does start to happen, yeah. Which is kind of confusing to me, because we watched the movie, we saw Paul McGann was the first Doctor to really snog people and have sexual feelings and all that.
But maybe John Hurt's Doctor assumed that would be like a one-off, like that was a weird Doctor, that guy. I'm just not gonna think about that, and we'll move past that segment. And then it's like, this happens a lot. This keeps happening. I also really enjoy Matt Smith's Doctor, because we had David Tennant, who was very much a kissy Doctor, to Matt Smith, who was very much not a kissy Doctor. And I really enjoyed that contrast of, he just is not on board with kissing at all. Which I like to think was influenced by David Tennant kissing so many people. He was like, I am sick of this.
Probably. David Tennant is probably like the last sexual Doctor, though. Like, Peter Capaldi kissed probably River Song a couple of times. That's about it.
It was the only one he liked kissing as well. Whenever, although even then, I think when River Song kissed him, or maybe it was when Missy kissed him, and he was like, "Is it over? Is it done?" He wasn't the biggest fan of kissing either.
He wasn't big on hugs either.
He wasn't big on much interaction physically, which is why I related to him so much. David Tennant says that he'll be right back, which of course he isn't going to be right back, which I think, if I remember correctly, this fixes a plot hole from his series 2, maybe his first series, with when Queen Elizabeth shows up at the end of the werewolf episode, and she's like, "Doctor, it's so good to finally see you again. Off with your," and she sentences him to be executed.
Yeah.
And then he runs away, and that's where the episode ends, and they never mention it again. And this is the answer to that. It's because he left her at the altar after marrying her, saying he'll be right back.
I forgot about that until now. It's really great.
It's Moffat fixing a little bit of timey-wimey that he didn't even set up. It's a lovely little just pin in that cushion.
So, of course, David Tennant runs into the TARDIS, and it's a lovely 9th Doctor and 10th Doctor design, which is lovely to see again. Huge hit of nostalgia there.
It is a huge hit of nostalgia. I do enjoy Matt Smith describing it as his grunge phase, because it is early 2000s edge all over it. The TARDIS glitches out and explodes briefly and changes the interior, which John Hurt describes as it's trying to compensate for us all 3 Doctors being in the TARDIS at the same time. And we get the classic Who big white circles, which Matt Smith's like, "It's the round things. I love the round things. What did they do?" David Tennant's like, "I had no idea."
Well, which, nitpicking again, the Doctor should know what they do. Like in Dimensions of Time, which was the 30th anniversary special, it was to store specimens like Cybermen, Time Lord heads, and all that. That's Rani's TARDIS, at least. And also, I think you can remove the panels and there's like wires behind it. You can fix wires and whatever. But yeah, nitpicks.
Why do you hate fun? Why do you hate fun, Scott? Huh? Yeah, but then Matt Smith stabilizes it, and we get into his boring TARDIS. It's my least favorite TARDIS design, second only to Jodie's TARDIS, which I don't like either. But this is Matt Smith's grey, monotone, boring-looking TARDIS that bleeds into Capaldi's a bit. They do make it look so much better in Capaldi's season when he starts adding bookshelves and making it look a bit more like a library. That was much better, and Matt Smith's first TARDIS design's so good. Like, I love the big weird gold stuff, the console that's just junk stuck onto it. Like, it's such a good looking TARDIS interior. And this one's just it's just too clean looking and not in the nice way.
I agree with you. He did get in this depression phase where he just lost Amy and Rory, which makes sense. It does look very minimal and just bleak, but it doesn't fit for the rest of his era.
Yeah, and David Tennant does the classic joke, which is a callback to Classic Who, and they do it all the time whenever Moffat's writing, where he's like, "Oh, you redecorated. I don't like it," which is great.
Which was first used in the Five Doctors when the second Doctor walks into Brigadier's office. And David Tennant's face is just amazing here. I've never seen his face do this before in Doctor Who. It's perfect. Just the look of disgust on his face.
So the guy whose performance you don't like is talking about how the humans don't understand the technology that they're hiding in this unit base. And he walks past what I can only assume is a wall of Easter eggs that I don't understand. I didn't pick up any immediately from watching, but I feel like this is, if you were to have an Easter egg, this is where you would hide it, surely.
Whereabouts, sorry?
Right after the end of that TARDIS scene.
All the shit in the foreground, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it goes by too quickly to really see what's going on. There's shoes, there's high heels, which I would presume it belongs to River Song. It's my only guess.
Yeah, I can't make out anything that looks recognizable, which kind of feels like a missed opportunity to me, unless there's something really niche hidden in there that somebody is currently like pulling their hair out, like, no, it's from the Attack of the Plorbs. Ah!
Oh yes, my favorite episode.
And then watching this scene is where I was like, oh wait, I've seen this before. Oh yeah, they do this exact same thing in Capaldi's era. Whoops. Where Kate and Osgood walk in to the underground base bit where the Zygons are, and they're like, I'm going to set off a nuclear bomb. Yeah, well, I'm going to set off a nuclear bomb. Well, we're all going to die. Yeah, well, we're all going to die. And, the doctors have to burst in and be like, yeah, well, we're going to solve it. We'll talk about the scene where they burst in first because it's super cool. But this, we've said it a couple times already, but I was honestly shocked at how much this is the blueprint for one of Capaldi's best episodes.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, again, we don't really do sequels in Doctor Who, and to choose this plot line to do a sequel of is kind of insane.
There's a really great moment where they confirm that Kate is Lethbridge Stewart's daughter, and they talk about, and the Doctor interrupts her being like, this is a space telegram that I gave to Lethbridge before he died, and it communicates with the TARDIS so I can hear what's going on so that we can get this bit of exposition out. But David Tennant interrupts, and he's like, don't set off that bomb. It's, not something you'll ever be able to live with. Which, I mean, she's about to die if she sets off the bomb, David Tennant. But there's a brief shot where he looks at Matt Smith and Matt Smith looks at him after saying that, where it's like, that's a good moment right there, where it's you'll never be able to live with killing everybody, and they both hit that. Yeah, I know that's true. Both relate to that there. It's very, very good.
And when they speak of the Brigadier, they cut to a photograph of him, and right next to it is a photograph of Chameleon as well, the robot dude we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
I always forget they added nipples onto him.
Well, where's the milk going to come out of?
Yeah, of course, we get a ticking clock with this bomb, which is always a good plot device.
Yeah, although we also get something weird as we find out that the Tower of London is TARDIS-proof, which I honestly never picked up on them saying before. I just assumed they went in the painting because it looks cool.
Yeah, it is weird. But there's a point where John Hurt's like, we don't need to land, and then David Tennant turns to him, he's like, yeah, we do. Just a tiny bit. Try to keep up. And it's a total, just a grandson speaking to their granddad who's gone a bit senile.
Which is funny because David Tennant's character is older than John Hurt's character. And this is when our timey-wimey box gets its payoff from earlier in the episode. If you remember, when the man that Scott doesn't like gets a phone call and he's like, but I just talked to you. It was because of this, so that they could get in. Because they hid themselves inside the painting of the what is it, the fall of the second city of Gallifrey. What's it called?
I just remember it sounds like arcade.
Arcadia.
Yes. It's where they play all their video games. But when I watched this originally, I was like, I was kind of let down because I was hoping someone else was calling him. I thought the Doctor was too obvious.
Yeah, but you know, we spoke before how it's not Moffat's most inventive, unwindy box, but it's a solid, fine one that works.
Imagine if it was like the Rani from the classic era who you don't know. Imagine how shocked you would be.
Imagine how shocked you would be if it was Jodie. About 5 years before she joined the show.
It'd be really fun if they just kept on George Lucas in this episode, being like, oh, now we've got Jodie Whittaker in this episode. That'd be insane.
Yeah, they just keep overdubbing the line of the guy where he's like, no sir, all 15. No sir, all 20.
And then the guy dies halfway through and he's like, oh no, we need to find a new guy, and just hear an audible difference when he says, no sir, all 72.
Yeah, and then at some point they just cut it out, so it just goes, no sir, all.
It would be a fun way to announce the 14th Doctor by including them in the BBC iPlayer edition of Doctor Who, Day of the Doctor.
The shot transition over Osgood's shoulder as she's praying for the Doctor, into the painting, through the CGI painting, into seeing all three Doctors standing in the painting as like a Dalek explodes behind them in slow motion, is one of my favorite Doctor Who shots ever. It's so cool.
It's like a painting. It looks so pretty.
The CGI for it has held up really well as well.
Yeah, it looks great, and it's, if you remember the trailer, the original trailer for Day of the Doctor, we kind of did this whole aesthetic, but for like a whole minute. It's a pretty awesome aesthetic.
And then what song kicks in? What song kicks in, Scott?
This is the best use of "I Am the Doctor," I think.
It is goosebump inducing. It's so good.
It is completely earned as well, unlike most of the other times we use it.
It's the best theme song. I'm so right. So they all climb out of the painting as like explosions kick off and the horns start playing from I Am the Doctor. It's super cool. And then Clara comes to step out. But whose hand is that? Because a hand grabs the side of the painting as she's climbing out. But the perspective makes no sense for me for it to be Clara's hand. Like, unless she's completely leaning over and grabbing up here with her hand, like across her chest. It's such weird. Whose hand is that?
I don't know. It's something I've never noticed before or don't care about. So let's move on.
It's so weird. It's so distracting to me. Where I'm like, oh, is somebody else coming out of the painting?
Also, little trivia about Cup of Soup, which keeps on getting mentioned in this episode. It was invented in Sheffield, which Chip Mill would be very happy about.
Get out.
The more you know.
This is the scene where they basically play Capaldi's episode in 5 times speed, where David Tennant and Matt Smith pull up the chairs and sit next to each other in sync, and it's very cool. And they're like, okay, we're going to come up with a plan that works out for everybody. Everybody likes it, and everybody's going to get along. Let's go. And then they do it in like a second.
Yeah.
It takes Capaldi an incredible speech to get it done. We're gonna need to revisit the Zygon invasion and the Zygon inversion at some point, because in my head, this 5-second scene covers literally everything in those 2 episodes. So
Yeah, it's been a while since I remember that, since I've seen that episode. But yeah, it pretty much gets summed up in here. But yeah, David Tennant and Matt Smith. Oh my god, I forgot his name. But David Tennant and Matt Smith being in complete synchronization after their argument earlier really works. It's really solid storytelling. We're on the same page finally.
So this is a bit that I don't get. And maybe it was a cutscene, or maybe I missed something. So everyone's discussing the plans because the doctors knock out the memory loss thing, so everybody forgets who's a Zygon. And we're talking with Osgood, and they're like, hey, what if I forget if I'm the Zygon or you're the Zygon? And then one of the Osgood starts choking, and the other one hands the inhaler. But the last scene we saw with the 2 Osgoods, the real Osgood took the inhaler as they ran away.
Yeah.
So how has Zygon got the inhaler now?
We will. I think that's part of the exploration in this 2-parter in Capaldi's Zero.
Is it?
I think it gets answered.
We'll have to rewatch. We're gonna have to cover it at some point because that's a plot hole that I didn't pick up on the first time I watched it because it's such a minute little detail, but is one that I definitely will want answered.
But does this scene say that the one of the inhaler is the Zygon one?
No, because the Zygons don't get body. They can't like mimic asthma.
Right, but okay, but if this Zygon doesn't remember it, but it's not a Zygon, in its head it's like, oh, I have asthma, therefore I am choking now.
That's a stretch. That's a stretch. That's a stretch for me.
It's possible.
It's you could use it as an explanation for sure. It's just not one I like. We also get a shot of a Cyberman head because Cybermen, yay!
And then Clara goes up and looks at the wall of companions, and there was a lot of speculation at the time because people thought Ben and Holly towards the right with Frame was in fact Peeta from the Hunger Games, and people were like, why is Peter from the Hunger Games in here?
People are dumb. But we get a look at Susan, and it, we are kind of running out of time for Susan to make a return to Doctor Who. Which I would love to see just one scene of the Doctor visiting her while she's an old lady, and just having a nice quiet monologue, a little chat with her, and that's it. Just as a little wrap up, and it would be just absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I'm still not sure how we would handle that, but it would be nice to see her back, but I'm not sure at this point.
just I don't know, the Doctor saying goodbye, I guess. Maybe you could do it that she stuck her Time Lordness into a stopwatch and made herself human, and then just passed away and didn't regenerate.
Yeah, we don't actually know if she can regenerate. We don't know if she completed like Time Lord Academy.
Yeah, because maybe she never looked into the eye of the vortex or whatever it is that you need to do to become a Time Lord.
Because she obviously left the show way before the concept of regeneration became a thing, and then obviously as the show progressed,
before the concept of Gallifrey was even a thing. Surely.
Yeah. like initially there were people from the 51st century or something like that, which is wild. I don't think Doctor Who would be quite the same if it was just a man from the future,
dude. Yeah. it's way less interesting. But yeah, it would be interesting to see how they handle it. But I would not even question it. I would just bring it up and be like, goodbye. I said I'd come and visit you again. Now I have blah blah blah. And you could say that she's not a biological granddaughter.
Yeah.
Whatever, or maybe she's the granddaughter of a Time Lord who got with a non-Time Lord person that couldn't regenerate, and that gene just didn't pass down. So you can explain it off in a billion different ways. But it gets more complicated that she has timeless child genes in her. Yeah. So
oh god, this show has changed dramatically since she was last on screen. It's insane.
Oh yeah, massively. She was going on adventures with like the Mayans. Then there's a really really good scene with John Hurt and lady who plays Clara, whose name I've forgotten.
Jenna
Something.
Coleman.
That's it, Jenna Coleman. Where it's just a quiet conversation like what you'd have with a granddad at a family
Yes.
gathering. Like, he's just sitting in the chair by himself thinking. She walks over to him, they're just chatting. And she, because she's Clara, figures out that he hasn't done the Time War yet.
I thought you said time warp.
No, he does that all the time. But they just start chatting and, talking about how he regrets killing everybody and stuff like that. And John Hurt's like, but how many people do you think his regret has saved? Just look over there right now, and his regret is saving humans in the Zygons. And it was just this, like, perfect wee scene, and it's so well performed by John Hurt. Like, I love this. I love this, like, middle to second end of the 50th anniversary, especially. It's everything I wanted it to be.
Yeah, it's really nice that the 50th anniversary takes the time to explore the character of the Doctor and just has these quiet moments where we basically just have discussions about the kind of person the Doctor is.
Yeah, it just talks about his philosophy and his morals, and it's compelling. Like,
it really is. It doesn't need to be action non-stop. You can have these moments of just sitting down and listening to John Hurt have a conversation with Clara, and it's perfect.
And, who would have thought that listening to the Doctor have a grown-up conversation about something mature and that is delicately handled would be very interesting to look at. I mean, it's a good thing John Hurt wasn't too socially awkward to have this conversation with Clara.
Also, I'm surprised nobody ever says to John Hurt, "Oh, pressing that button doesn't actually kill all the Daleks, right? We just keep coming back."
Yeah, we were contractually obliged to bring the Daleks back, so pressing that button, all you do is kill your own people, John.
Yeah.
You don't solve any problems. Then we get possibly one of the best lines Moffat has ever written, assuming it's an original Moffat and not just something he stole from a poem, which he might have stole from a poem. It does sound kind of familiar. When John Hurt's back on Gallifrey, ready to press the big red button to blow everybody up, and he is like, "Oh, those other versions of me were extraordinary, they were brilliant, they were the Doctor." And the moment's like, "You're the Doctor as well." And he's like, "No, great men are forged in fire, it's the privilege of lesser men to hold the flame," which is just an incredible line. And hearing John Hurt say those words with his gravelly old voice it's very good.
Yeah, I'm looking this up, and all signs point to Doctor Who, so I'm presuming it's just the Doctor Who original, which is
just an original Moffat. It's it is his best line he's ever written, then, because it is poetic.
He's a really good writer when he wants to be. But yeah, there's kind of like moments where John Hurt kind of refuses to look Billy Piper in the eyes, which is really great.
Yeah, and when he goes to press the button, we then flash to all the kids he's going to murder, because, of course, we can't forget this is an episode centered around child murder.
Did we ever make mention of the kids of Gallifrey before this?
No, not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. They've literally never talked about the children of Gallifrey. It's a very Stephen Moffat, like, oh my god, this is a dark thing no one's talked about here, isn't it?
It's very season 3 of Torchwood.
Then the moment is like, do you know that noise the TARDIS makes that brings hope to everybody? That whirring, and we start to hear the TARDIS in the background as it starts to come in. And we see that Matt Smith and David Tennant show up in a very, very good moment, which I remember now. The cold open is them talking in the prison. This is what I use as the episode intro of the Doctors being like, you don't have to do this alone. You are the Doctor, etc.
Nice. But yeah, it's such a cool concept for the Doctor to be in a scenario where he could support himself in such a weird way.
To murder kids.
True.
We also get a really slow version of I Am the Doctor playing, which I think sounds even more epic than the usual one. It's excellent.
I'm not gonna lie, this part kind of got to me in the cinema. I'm just like, yeah, you go support yourself, Doctor. Yeah, you be there for yourself. Oh, and just a shot of John Hurt in the middle, and then to the right of him he has Matt Smith and Clara. To the left there's David Tennant and Rose. It's just but it's not Rose.
everyone is acting their ass off in this scene, aren't they? They are just giving it their all, and it's so good.
And I love David Tennant and Matt Smith taking turns to say the same line. It's perfect.
Is this possibly the best acted Doctor Who episode ever? I think it definitely has to be up there. From every main character performance, it is just hitting it out of the park. Like Matt Smith, I don't think ever really gave a bad performance. David Tennant, I don't think ever gave a bad performance, but they're both giving it their all here. Like,
do you think part of that is because they're with John Hurt and they just really want to be on top of their game?
They want to really impress John Hurt. Like,
yeah. I'm sure that's part of it, right?
Yeah. And the speech they give, where it's like, what we do today is not out of fear or hatred, but it's, basically what just has to be done. It's so good. It makes you cry.
And it's amazing. You can feel. It feels like John Hurt has been in this role for like years and years. He's doing fantastic for his first episode as the Doctor. You forget that it's his first episode as the main character.
Yeah, his performance has so much weight to it that you really feel the years that his Doctor's been around, and he's only been around for an hour and 4 seconds.
Yeah.
We then get a really well put together. Talking about how good the editing in this is at times, where the moment decides to project essentially Gallifrey onto everybody so that they can see what they're about to do. And we get these really nice close-ups of each Doctor as we see like a kid or somebody screaming or an explosion or something. And Clara's like, this is what you're about to do. You're about to kill all these people. And it is, you feel the drama. It's not rare in Doctor Who, usually for finales and stuff, but throughout the entire episode, you feel the drama and really understand the weight of what they're getting across.
Yeah, because we've never really seen Gallifrey in the new series that much. And when we did, it's like in the End of Time where Gallifrey comes back for some reason. I can't remember why he came back. I don't care. I don't like that episode, but this episode does it a lot better.
Oh, so many lines I want to if I could clip the entire episode, I would. But there's the scene where Clara's like, look at the three of you, the warrior, the hero, and then Matt Smith's like, yeah, what am I? And he's like, have you forgotten? He's like, yeah, maybe I have. What am I? She's like, you just got to, be the one thing you've always been, be a doctor. I was like, goddamn. Right. So, we're talking about how good all this stuff is, how good all the monologues and the performances are. And the next episode after this is the Time of the Doctor, which is set at the town called Christmas, where which you don't like, but I love it, where Matt Smith spends the rest of his regeneration looking after the town called Christmas and just aging and aging and aging until he dies of old age. This episode, combined with the Time of the Doctor, really makes Capaldi's motivation in the first series completely confusing, doesn't it? Where he's like, am I a good man? Say not burning all those children, going back into your own time stream to, save Gallifrey in a timey-wimey way, and then spending your entire regeneration looking after one planet. You're right, Doctor. You're horrible.
Like even if that didn't just happen, it would still be very confusing because he spent what is this, season 35? Name of the Doctor? It wasn't a great first season for Capaldi, and we discussed that in Deep Breath. Listen to it wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Yeah, it's an interesting first series Capaldi had.
Maybe 2 or 3 good episodes though. Mummy on the Orient Express and Time Heist.
I kind of like Into the Dalek. I thought that was a fun concept. Last Christmas was a good Christmas special. It was like Alien, but with Nick Frost as Santa Claus.
Oh yeah. I don't remember.
Capaldi had some pretty good Christmas specials.
I like the only Christmas special I like is the Husbands of River song, and I just accidentally clicked on that episode. Now it's playing. Oh no.
Husbands of River Song's the best Christmas special they've ever done.
Yes, that's because it doesn't feature Christmas that much.
And it is just about the Doctor and River Song's relationship, and the ending of it, oh my god, so good.
And then they followed it up with a superhero one.
Yeah, with the guy that played Goku in the live-action Dragon Ball movie.
Okay.
The guy, that's who the superhero is.
Well, that episode was awful.
It's not great. Although I do think the Husbands of River Song would have been the perfect send-off to Capaldi's Doctor. Don't you think?
Yes, it would have been much better than Twice Upon a Time. I need to rewatch Twice Upon a Time, but I remember it being okay. But yeah, the Husbands of River Song would have been the greatest send-off you could give his Doctor. Anyway, this isn't about Capaldi. I mean, David Tennant's like, you're not actually suggesting we change your own history. And then Matt Smith's like, we change our history all the time, which is something they've never addressed.
Yeah,
they change just by being in the episodes, just by doing all these events. We're changing history all the time.
Yeah, they really are. You know, I know the meddling monk is already a villain, but the Doctor really is the meddling monk.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah, we get the Doctors start being like, "Oh, there's a billion Daleks. How are we going to not kill everybody?" Because Matt Smith's like, "You know what? I'm not doing it. We're going to save the day this time." And then Matt Smith gets the bright idea first, followed by David Tennant, and then John Hurt is like, "Oh yes, finally. Okay, yes, I understand what we're talking about." And they're like,
I just realized it's reverse order.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And you know, it's, you know, last time there was only John Hurt. This time there's three of us, which I guess that's how the timeline is working in this. Even though I would argue that there always was three of them, because this is the events that always did happen. They just didn't know it. Anyway, but even then, their plan isn't that there's three of them. Their plan is that there's going to be 13 of them.
Yeah.
But they basically plan on sticking Gallifrey into a pocket universe and making the Daleks shoot each other, and big explosion. Everyone thinks Gallifrey got destroyed, but when really it didn't.
Which is a fun little plan that's been very hammered into this episode, and I think it really works. Like, if Stephen Moffat didn't spend such a good job setting this up, I don't think it would have worked quite the same. But the whole painting thing really works for me.
Yeah. I feel like in another episode they explained pocket universes as well. Like there was another episode where something was in a pocket universe or doing something in a pocket universe. So it is already established Doctor Who canon about these pocket universes. Which you know is good. Using the canon rather than just inventing up stuff works out well most of the time. Then John Hurt goes, "Bad wolf girl, I could kiss you," and Billy Piper's like, "Haha, yeah, we will kiss." And David Tennant has the line where he's like, "Did you just say bad wolf?" And everyone in the audience goes, "Yay!"
Yeah, I remember a lot of teenage girls going in the audience. We're like, just turn around. And I love the glee of the three doctors explaining what's going on to Clara. Just so happy, just so victorious for once. Time Lord victorious.
Oh, wow. Hey, look at that.
I still need to listen to and read all of that.
That's too much.
There it is. And then Clara's like, where would Gallifrey be? I mean, David Tennant always says his name was favorite Disney movie, Frozen. I don't know why that's in there.
Because it had just come out in cinemas, baby. Then we get into some really, 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 really fun stuff as we go back into the Time Lord War Room as the Doctors pop up one by one on the monitors, which is something that will be happening again very shortly, as they basically explain their whole pocket universe plan.
Also, just watching this, I am so annoyed Gallifrey got destroyed again without any kind of fanfare. It just got destroyed off screen. Like, why? It really annoys me.
I wasn't listening. What did you say?
Are you being legit this time?
Legit. I was watching the episode. What?
I was saying how annoyed I am at Gallifrey just being destroyed again without any fanfare.
Yes. Well, they had some fanfare in that they turned everyone into Cybermen that didn't do anything. and then everybody died.
Yes.
And Jodie got away and felt literally nothing.
Yeah.
Even when she saw the Cybermen, I don't remember her being like really distraught. What about the Cybermen kids, Jodie? Huh? What about the Cyber kids? How many Cyber kids are on Gallifrey? But yeah, we spoke earlier again, but Gallifrey is such a missed opportunity for modern Who. Like, it is just this glaringly obvious stuff and fun exploration they can do into the Doctor's past and his future and the lore, and they just drop the ball on it almost every time.
Throughout the entire show, they've never really known what to do with Gallifrey. Even in the classic era, Gallifrey has just always kind of been boring, and that's why most creators either want it destroyed or want to bring it back. Even Moffat got bored of Gallifrey after this again. Like,
he brought it back for one episode and then never again. Like how interesting would Capaldi's first series be if it was I mean, his first series is him looking for Gallifrey, or is that his second series? Because his first series he's just grumpy. What if his first series he was looking for Gallifrey, and then the second series he's just on What if we just have a series on Gallifrey? You know, we screw it. Let's pull out the pitch for the Doctor Who movies TV series. The Doctor's a prince and he's half human now. We'll just take everything from that and we'll make that into a series. Sorted.
Also, another thing is, the Doctor left some of his or her companions on Gallifrey, like Leela and K9. And then when Jodie realized that Gallifrey was destroyed again, she was like, "Oh, okay, okay."
If I remember correctly, Jodie had to destroy Gallifrey herself by like pressing a button, and it was like, "I'll die, but so will you, Master, and everybody here." But then like a dude, just some random old Gallifreyan, is like, "I'll destroy everybody," and she's like, "Oh, sick." And just flies away. Well, that guy sacrifices himself.
Oh, God, season 12 final was God, can't wait to get to that though. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Also, during this scene, there's one point where Matt Smith has his script on the TARDIS.
Does he really?
It only lasts for one shot, which is hard to look at on BBC iPlayer because of the bar at the bottom.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I see it. Yeah, I see it. Yeah. About 1 hour 5 and 59 seconds.
Yeah, and then it disappears again after that, but I don't know what that's about.
Remembering lines is hard sometimes. And then we get one of the best moments ever, which I feel like I've said so many times in this episode already, but where they're like, "Oh, the calculations for figuring out how to get Gallifrey away will take hundreds of years." And the Doctor's like, "Well, I started those a long, long time ago." The music flares up again as we pan through space to just so many TARDISes flying, as I think it's the first Doctor's voice kicks in.
Yep, it's not the first Doctor. It's actually an actor playing the first Doctor. This is the first time we've ever heard the first Doctor say Gallifrey on screen, which is awesome.
It's a very good impression.
It's perfect. You'd believe it's from a classic era if you didn't know that.
And then we get to see various shots of different Doctors in their TARDISes, as some lines are dubbed in over being like, "Oh, I'm here to save the day," and it's just a nice look at Doctor Who's past, isn't it?
It's also very distracting just seeing all these archived clips. Like the one with Christopher Eccleston especially is like, yeah, he definitely did not film that for this episode. It was from Parting of the Ways.
Yeah, but I really like seeing Paul McGann's Doctor.
Yeah.
There, I love seeing his Doctor there. I enjoy seeing Eccleston's Doctor show up in the full big screen. But yeah, it being in standard definition is really what gives it away. Yeah. It's such a cool moment, though. It's so cool. And then we get one of the more iconic lines when the guy's like, "Huh, I thought I was having it bad before. Now there's 12 of them." "No, sir, all 13. Slam down. Look at Capaldi's eyes, and I remember just being so goddamn excited.
Yeah, a couple of people screamed in my cinema. They're like, "Ah!" They were so excited. Yeah, it was a massive moment. Nobody saw coming.
Yeah, it's one of the coolest Doctor. Like, it was announced that Capaldi was taking over, maybe really recently when this was coming out.
Yeah, he was announced in August, so 3 months before.
Yeah. And then see nobody expected him to show up in this.
Yeah.
And when you just see those eyes, it is like a jump out your seat, oh my god moment.
It probably got the biggest reaction in my screening. It was perfect.
And, you know, at least with the way that Chibnall's been writing Jodie, it makes sense that she wouldn't want to come and save Gallifrey.
And also, Matt Smith and David Tennant's favorite catchphrases, and then John Hurt's like, really? Really?
Yeah, and he has to kind of think of a catchphrase on the go, and he's like, Gallifrey stands, or something, which is a bad catchphrase, so it's never going to catch on. I just realized, so after Gallifrey gets transported away, we cut to black and then cut to a cup of tea. And we see John Hurt drinking the tea. This is the second time we've seen John Hurt's Doctor sipping at tea. I like to think it was just because John Hurt was old and he was like, I really want a cup of tea. If I'm doing this scene, I'm going to have some tea. Which is great. It also ties him into Classic Who a bit. If you remember back in the Doctor Who movie,
yes.
That's the one thing that he's trying to do in that film is sit down, listen to the music, and have a cup of tea. So it ties into that specific era of Doctor Who very nicely.
And Clara's just having a lovely time at her granddad's house.
David Tennant and Matt Smith are looking at the painting of Arcadia on fire, and they're like, what is the name of this thing actually? And Matt Smith's like, well, there's some debate. It's either called No More or Gallifrey Falls. And immediately upon hearing that, I went, Gallifrey Falls No More.
Wow, really?
It's not their Moffat's easiest or most difficult mystery that he's created, is it?
Well, it took me a while.
I really like Clara and the War Doctor together. They're really cute. Just when he's like, you know, if I grow to be half the man you are, Clara, then I will have succeeded. And she's like, well, you gotta aim high.
I also just like the bit where Matt Smith refers to John Hurt as the Doctor, which is really lovely.
Yeah.
You can read that as just Matt Smith himself referring to John Hurt as the man, as the Doctor.
The version of the Doctor that's never called himself the Doctor, that never saw it, finally getting that recognition. And then we get the tinge of tragedy that needs to be there so that the Doctor Who canon makes sense.
Yeah.
Where John Hurt's like, I'm not going to remember this, am I? And Matt Smith's like, nope, you're not going to remember it because the timelines are out of sync. Timey-wimey, you'll forget. And which, you know, plays into the regret and the grief that Eccleston and Tennant experienced through their series without undermining it by being like, haha, everything was fixed all along. It turns it into more of a tragedy that they don't know they actually saved the day.
Yeah,
and they blame themselves.
I think when I first watched this episode, I was kind of annoyed that they saved Gallifrey because I thought it kind of undermined everything, but over time, I think like a few days later, I realized, oh, it's extra tragic now. Like,
yeah, extra
saving something and then going through all that grief, all that unwarranted grief.
Saving something and then having to wait 400 years to realize that you actually saved it and that you've been hating yourself for no reason. Yeah.
But, you know, Jodie doesn't care anymore. That's fine.
She's over it.
I think Jodie got over it in like 24 years she was in prison. Something like that.
Yeah, but she left Yaz for 6 months, and that was really uncalled for. So there's the cute wee joke that doesn't make me laugh, but always makes me go, huh. Every time when John Hurt looks at the TARDISes and goes, which one's mine? Because his TARDIS is completely war-battered. And then he begins to regenerate, and he says the lines the first Doctor says, isn't it? Where he goes, wearing a bit thin.
Yep, which makes sense, because John Hurt was pretty old. And, sadly died a few years after this.
Moffat really liked the Doctor regenerating from old age in this period, because that's how Matt Smith would regenerate in the very next episode.
Yeah.
He also regenerated from old age. Which I suppose, you know, it's a pretty good way for the Doctor to regenerate rather than them just getting shot by a Dalek. Like,
You know, after every anniversary special, an actor from it has died a few years afterwards. Like, the 3 Doctors, William Hartnell died like 2 years afterwards. And the 5 Doctors, the guy who played the first Doctor died a few years afterwards. Dimensions in Time, John Pertwee died a few years afterwards. And then this, John Hurt died a few years afterwards. All I'm saying is, please don't have Tom Baker in the 60th anniversary special.
Oh my god. I was thinking Susan. I was like, we've got to stick her in this. We've got to stick her in the special because she'll be the one that goes. But yeah, I didn't even think of Tom Baker. That man's infinitely old.
Yeah.
Like he's like almost a walking corpse in this when he shows up. This was almost 10 years ago. He's so old.
He is 87 years old. Jesus Christ.
He's an old boy.
But he's still the Doctor. Good on him.
Yeah, I love him. We get the great line as John Hurt's regenerating that he's like, I hope the ears are a bit less conspicuous this time, which plays into Eccleston's first episode when he looks at his ears and he's like, the ears are a bit much. Which, gets a bit confusing with Big Finish saying that actually his adventures are happening before that episode, which doesn't make sense. We've already fixed that. You should listen to our Big Finish episode reviews of Eccleston's series because we fixed it.
Yeah, I think our theory works well. Well, one thing about Stephen Moffat is he loves having a multi-Doctor storyline right before a Doctor regenerates. Matt Smith regenerates the next episode. John Hurt just regenerated, and then he wrote Twice Upon a Time to have William Hartnell regenerate.
He does, yeah. What a strange coinky-dink that he was just having a multi-Doctor kick for a while. There's some debate. I remember there being a debate when it came out anyway. When John Hurt regenerates here, because Eccleston didn't want to be involved in this, and he's not in it. But I myself, and quite a few other people, 100% see the tinges of Eccleston's face as John Hurt regenerates, which I think they've definitely added with, some CGI tweaking, but I 100% can see tinges of Eccleston's face, which, if I remember correctly, at the time, Moffat and that denied, being like, no, we cut away before you see any sort of changes like that. It's just John Hurt's face. And we're like, no, that doesn't sound... It looks like Eccleston.
Yeah, I can see subtle changes as well. But yeah, we definitely cut away just before the proper change happens, which is good. I wonder if Christopher Eccleston would have grounds to sue if he included a CGI face of him.
Probably.
Yeah.
Because they already own the footage of him that they used in the episode. That's already... The BBC own that, whereas they don't own his image to reconstruct, although he's in the comics, so
yeah, it's weird how that works.
I guess it would just be a gray area that they weren't really wanting to legally fight.
People were convinced for a while that Christopher Eccleston actually was in this episode and that the clip they used from the Parting of the Ways was a new clip, and I'm like, no, it doesn't make sense. It's from
it's in standard definition. It's not shot in HD. Then we get the tying up of the bows, where we jump back into Matt Smith's series 7 here, where it's like, oh, I'm going to Trenzalore. Trenzalore's the grave of the Doctor. You die in a battle. And David Tennant's like, oh, I don't think that's where it's going to go. And then Moffat decides to kick Russell T Davies in the face when he makes David Tennant go, I don't want to go. As he's getting back into the TARDIS, which is just the pulling of the heartstrings of every Doctor Who fan there.
Yeah, people in my screening were like, oh.
Also, there's very much David Tennant giving Matt Smith the seal of approval right before Matt Smith's last episode, where he's saying goodbye to Matt Smith. He's like, it's good to see the Doctor's in safe hands, like the approval of the next Doctor, but Matt Smith's about to leave, so a bit too slow.
To be honest, I don't remember what the fuck happened with the whole Trenzalore arc. I think I remember it's ending very disappointingly.
Trenzalore is the day before. That's They answer that in the next episode with the time of the Doctor, I'm pretty sure. Because Trenzalore is where the town called Christmas is.
But I remember the last episode showing the Doctor's grave, being like, oh, the Doctor's going to die.
It's like a giant TARDIS.
Yeah.
I would need to rewatch The Time of the Doctor, but if I remember, Christmas is on Transalore, and that's where he's fighting off like waves and waves and waves of Daleks and Cybermen and et cetera, et cetera. But I don't. Yeah, I would need to rewatch it. I don't fully remember.
I remember it just being shit. To be honest, I was very disappointed by Matt Smith's regeneration episode.
I really enjoyed it. What I really enjoyed was he did this huge regeneration where he gave this epic speech and he destroyed a Dalek, and he was regenerating his body to become a young guy. And then he sneezed into Capaldi and everybody lost their mind. Everybody was like, "Oh my god, that's not how regeneration." And it was like, what? It's a fun one. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, people got angry that he was old in the first place as well. Like, they just want to watch the show to think the Doctor is hot. That's some people.
Yeah, even though most doctors are 40 plus when they take on the role.
I'm sure somebody's really, really attracted to William Hartnell. They just have photoshopped nudes of him all around their walls.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
William Hartnell with a six-pack would be amazing. What an absolute chat.
Then Clara says that the curator was looking for the Doctor after David Tennant leaves. And I really, really like the thumbs up Matt Smith gives. Where she's like, "Oh, I thought there was an old guy looking for you. I think it's the curator." And Matt Smith just kind of goes, with this double thumbs up. I really like it.
I mean, I think this is the most excited I got in the cinema. Just hearing Tom Baker's voice coming, I'm like, I was so excited.
It is. It's so cool, isn't it? When Matt Smith's like, "Oh, I think I could retire and be the curator here," and you just hear that deep voice that Tom Baker has, where he's like, "I really think you might." It's so cool. And then his performance when he actually shows up with Matt Smith is chaotic, and I love it.
Yeah, I love him so much. This man woke up at like 3 a.m. to be here. I'm so happy he got out of bed that day. But Tom Baker agreed to do this short cameo as long as he didn't have to dress like the Fourth Doctor, which I understand. He didn't want to be he didn't want to be in the baggage of just being the Fourth Doctor for his rest of his life. And now he's the Fourth Doctor all the time. He's also the curator as well at the same time. He's both at the moment in Big Finish.
I love their conversation they have. But yeah, I also think it would have been super confusing if he showed up as the Fourth Doctor. Yes. I mean, it's already confusing that he shows up at all. Like, who is the curator? Why is he the Doctor?
Well, Moffat refused to explain that by saying, "You have to work that out by yourself. I make the show. Do I have to watch it for you as well?"
That's a very David Lynch answer.
Yes. But again, I wonder if they explain it in Big Finish somehow, because he keeps on appearing in Big Finish. In fact, one of his new box sets just came out today. Unit.
Interesting. But we also get the reveal here that the painting is called Gallifrey Falls No More, which, 10 points if you figured that riddle out.
I love Tom Baker, though. Just 7 years he was the Doctor. It's insane to think about. No other actor will have played the character that long.
Yeah, and so many people try. Like, I remember when Matt Smith was announced as the Doctor, and they were like, "How long are you going to be the Doctor?" And he's like, I want to be the Doctor longer than Tom Baker was." And then he gets his 3 seasons, and he's like, "I'm done." Yeah. Which is, the 3-season pattern is a recurring pattern that I get. You want your Doctor to stay fresh. You don't want to get tired of the role. You don't want to be typecast like Tom Baker has been. But also, stay on for like a 4th season. Just shake up the bag a little bit. Like,
but at the same time, I understand 3 years is a nice number. And especially now when the show has a bigger schedule, like...
Yeah, I also think it helps keep fans interested, because if, say, there's a Doctor you don't like or a season you don't like, in 3 years' time, the show's a completely different show. Usually with different writers, different actors, different companions, a different TARDIS. Like, the show resets every 3 years.
Yes.
Or 3 series. Sometimes it's like every 5 years, but in that 5 years we get 3 series. The show resets all the time, and that's the joy of Doctor Who, isn't it?
I really don't get the confusion about the curator. It's It's just the Doctor in the future, and he's kind of retired from saving the galaxy. He's just like, oh, I want to own a museum and just curate it from now on. I don't really get the confusion.
Yeah, I guess it's just a really, really old version of the Doctor being like, yeah, I'm done. Whatever. There's enough versions of me that cover across all of time and space. I can just regenerate and retire, and be this lovely old man. You know what? I liked that long scarf guy I was all that time ago. We'll go back to him. It's weird thinking the curator knows about the timeless child.
Oh God, you're right.
There's a great moment when the curator is like, "Oh, if I was you, imagine," and they start laughing and like, "Oh, maybe you are me," and they go, "Ha ha ha," and then Tom Baker's like, "Congratulations," Matt Smith. So like, "Oh yes, very good." It's just so good.
It's just pure delight.
Also, the best gif of all time. Who knows?
Yes. I am so glad Tom Baker agreed to do this cameo. I can't imagine any other actor in this cameo.
It's a great conclusion to the episode as well.
Yeah. And it's also the biggest piece of classic Who representation, just to have the oldest actor alive to play the Doctor.
And we didn't even talk about the round things on the wall in the museum. There's round things on the wall, which makes me think: is this perhaps the curator's TARDIS they're in?
Yes, the museum is a TARDIS. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You finally figured out the chameleon circuit, billions of years in the future.
He took inspiration from Clara's diner TARDIS and was like, yes, but what if it was a museum? And then we get a shot as the Doctor monologues about dreaming, and you know, it's a conclusion thing. It's quite nice, where Matt Smith walks out to be with all his previous incarnations. You know, it's that very famous poster of all the Doctors standing together, and it looks good in that poster. And I remember it looking good when I watched it here, but revisiting it, quite a few of the Doctors seem a bit two-dimensional. There's the War Doctor, David Tennant and Matt Smith are fully 3D fleshed out beings, and everybody else is quite distractingly a 2D flat image.
Paul McGann looks the worst. I'm just gonna if you zoom in on Paul McGann, it's like his face is slightly too to the left. Like they just needed to press the right button just once or twice to.
What's wild is I think looking at the back of their heads, it looks great. It's only until you see their fronts that you realize, oh, it's a flat image I'm looking at here.
I believe their torsos are actually real actors on set on the day, but just their heads have been.
Their faces.
Yeah.
I suppose, we are still. This is 2013. We are like 5 years away from okay deepfake technology.
Yeah.
Like it's something they would be able to fix now, but not so much back then. See, I think. Yeah, Paul McGann's one doesn't look great. I think Eccleston's one looks pretty terrible. It's not horrendous. It's just not great.
Even in the cinema, just like the 2 seconds glimpse we get to see of us, I'm like, oh, that's not a good shot to end on. I could see some faults there. And William Hartnell doesn't look great either.
It's a, if it would, they could pull it off today and it would be iconic. It's still pretty iconic then. It's definitely limited by its technology.
I also love William Hartnell just being in the center right behind Matt Smith, which is really, really a nice touch.
And that's
do you think we would still have Doctor Who today if William Hartnell didn't have ill health?
That's a good question, yeah.
Because if William Hartnell wasn't dying, they wouldn't invent regeneration.
Yeah.
And it could have ended like season 5. William Hartnell could have said, "Okay, I'm tired of this. Bye bye."
That could have been a completely different timeline where we don't have Doctor Who as we know it, or even at all. But that's the end of the episode, and the credits play with what I very much enjoyed, with the Doctor's faces flying at you as they go through 1 to 13, or 1 to 13 because Matt Smith's technically 12, 1 to 12 because Matt Smith's technically the 12th Doctor.
Oh, God.
Because the War Doctor's the 9th Doctor and Eccleston's the 10th Doctor, but everyone just calls John Hurt the War Doctor because that makes life so much easier.
You just opened my memory of all the debates being like, oh, why isn't the 10th Doctor now called the 11th Doctor? And just like the amount of marketing and just all the changes to like all the toys and all that, just to
just call him the War Doctor and you're sorted.
It's a complete clusterfuck.
And now there's even Doctors before the first Doctor, so...
God.
But yes, that is the end of the Day of the Doctor. This deep, deep, deep dive, which we haven't done for, a couple months, a deep dive this long. It's been really fun to revisit something and really dig our teeth into it. But what did you think about this episode, revisiting it?
It really, really holds up. It's so much fun. I think it's the best anniversary special we've ever done. And I don't think it has too much fan service, which could have been a complete trap we could have completely fallen into. I think it's the right amount of fan service while also being accommodating for brand new viewers. It's just a fun blockbuster, and it's definitely the best multi-Doctor story for sure, because it actually has a plot.
I echo everything there. I absolutely loved this. I loved it when I watched it the first time. I loved it when I watched it the second and the third time, and I loved it when I watched it this time. It holds up so well. It's so good. I could take away the Zygon stuff, take away the funny comedy bits, and just make it a 20-minute series of conversations of the Doctor with himself, and I would love it just as much, because that's what I'm on board for. Those are my favorite scenes, and I will take those any day of the week.
One of my only issues is I don't think it connects too much to the classic era, which is 26 seasons. I think it's a bit too focused on New Who, which isn't entirely bad because that's where most of the audience came in. But I think a bit more love to the classic era would have been nice.
Yeah, I can see that, but the way that I see the 50th anniversary is finally answering what kicked off this series, because the series kicks off with the Time War, and the Doctor being at the end of it, and being the last surviving Time Lord and grieving and all that, and this is the conclusion. This is what it was. Everything's sorted. Let's move on to something else, and kind of not figure out what we're doing with Doctor Who for about a decade afterwards. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this so much.
And let's hope the 60th anniversary could be as good.
That brings us to the end of this episode, Scott. What are we looking at next week, if anything?
Next week, we are looking at episode 4 of the new series, which is our brand new Weeping Angel episode.
That's not even next week. That's probably in a couple days' time.
Yeah, so that should be out on Monday or Tuesday at the latest.
Or
even Sunday. We don't know yet. Just depends when we get it
between Sunday and Tuesday.
And then next Friday, we're looking at the news. Just looking at all the news that came out this month.
And you know what that means? That means it's time to send in your emails, boys and girls.
And non-binary people.
And everybody else in between. whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com. We talk about this latest season of Doctor Who Flux. What did you think about the 50th anniversary when it came out? Literally anything, just email us, please. But this has been Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Watches Doctor, on Facebook at Who Watches Who, on YouTube at Who Watches Who. You can follow me on Twitter at Cloth223. This podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts, and I think that's everything.
Did you give out email? I don't think you did. whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com.
I did give out the email.
I wasn't paying attention. Okay.
I did give out the email. whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com. And then I went on to talk about how you can email us about all these different topics. And I went on to talk about the Twitter and
I don't pay attention.
Welcome to the past 30 seconds of this conversation.
That's usually my part.
I did steal your part. I did. But goodbye.
Bye bye.